Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, and we're back. This is how you know that we are committed to staying true to the mission. Last week, I was laid off from my job. My income for the foreseeable future is basically tied to this channel. And here we are doing a live stream about what? That's right. An obscure RPG that no one knows about and no one will ever play and no one will ever click on. Thanks, everybody. The mission has not changed. 5e, get out of here. Welcome aboard, everybody. Ben lamenting the number of people that were in the pre-stream waiting for the thing to go live. Roll for combat, rubbing salt into the wound. I'm here for you. Let's play it now. You'll make dozens of dollars. There are dozens of us. Dozens. Voy, welcome. Welcome aboard. Glad you're here for live. Lance says, cool story, bro. Yes, this is the Storypath System, which has been being asked for by our longtime patron member, Pawn No Longer, for, about the last year or so. And here we are. Here we are. Well, there was definitely no pre-stream party going on, Thaddeus. It's been kind of it's only Tuesday, and yet it feels like it's been a very rough week so far. What's up, Jackal? Good to see you. 5E1 last week. What do you want from me? Here's the thing, Jackal. And I've said this before, but I don't know what I can do with 5E. I can't really discuss it. There's no PDFs. I can't show the rule books without apparently violating their copyright and potentially being demonetized or getting a copyright strike. So I don't really, other than just generically talking about it and high-level platitudes in an 8-minute video, I don't really know what else that they want from me. Do the SRD, but I feel like doing the SRD isn't really what is that. I feel like, I don't know. That seems like really, really, really dry and boring stuff. I mean, especially if we're talking about like the Dungeon Master's Guide. I doubt there's a Dungeon Master's Guide. So here's the problem. You could do rankings for the classes, spells, and all that crap. No, I can't. I don't play 5th edition D&D. I mean, even with Pathfinder 2nd edition, with the remaster, I had to bring on people, to do help me do the rankings because I hadn't played the remaster, and I'm not going to give rankings for something I don't play.
Thaddeus tipped $25. Glad that we can cover obscure games even if they don't bring the numbers.
Yes, Thaddeus, thank you so much for tips, and right there is why we can do stuff like this because for those of you who don't know, for someone like me, I get about $4 for every 1,000 views. And even if you're unless you're like a super mega star, getting 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 views on an RPG video is pretty dang good. So if I got 10,000 views, I would make $40, right? $40. And I can get a handful of tips from a couple of people who support this content, not to mention the patrons, and I can make more money than that. So that has been my philosophy. So even though I like to kid and joke about how we don't get any views, and to be clear, we don't. We get very few views. If I do a video about Pathfinder 2nd edition or something adjacent to 5th edition, we can get 6, 7, 8,000, 10,000 views. If I do something about Draw Steel or Daggerheart, we can get 10,000. But for the most part, I do better in some ways by making videos like this. So thank you, Thaddeus, and I appreciate you and appreciate you doing there. Ben says the SRD is boring, and I agree. I mean, I want to review the book. I don't want to just review a text document. That seems horrible. But I don't feel like I'm qualified to give rankings on stuff. Not to mention, a lot of the reason people would be like, oh, Derek, we want to see you talk about D&D 2024 and compare it to D&D 2010, 2012. I don't know. I mean, I don't have enough experience with all those classes to even tell you what changed. I know that when 2024 came out and Stephen Glicker from aka Roll for Combat, had the PHB at Gen Con, and I was looking through it, and I was talking about it. I was like, oh, this stuff seems kind of cool. And everyone was like, that has been in the game for a while. That was part of some, that was in Tasha's. That was part of some Unearthed Arcana. And I go, I don't know. Like, I didn't know anything about it. So now you have a ton of time to do the Eldamon stuff. So let me see here. let me bring this up. Let me see if I can bring this up easily. This is so on Friday, we sat down and we talked about we talked about what game we're going to run, and basically I was going to run Fabula Ultima, but I'm so, I got so much going on right now. And so so Smith agreed to run a campaign, and these are the notes that he came up with for what the current campaign is going to be. General campaign notes: Pathfinder 2nd Edition chassis plus Battle Zoo Bestiary, Eldamon Ancestries, Dragons, and Monster Hunting, plus Starfinder. Hey, Ben.
Would love to see you look at Ultraviolet Grasslands and the Black City, and the other Luca reject stuff such as Eternal Return Key. Great weird fantascience setting.
Ben, thank you so much for that tip. I would love to look at Ultraviolet Grasslands myself. I think it's really, really cool, and I've been meaning to look at that for a long time, and I think that would actually be a really great stream, because I think that's been on sort of like on my periphery of my radar for a while, and I certainly would. I think I would dig it. There's a weirdness to it. I agree that probably means it wouldn't be something I would want to play per se, but it's something that I would definitely be interested in as well. But I don't know the other ones that you're talking about. The other Luca Reject stuff, the Eternal. I don't know that stuff. The other games. So yeah. But Ultraviolet Grasslands, I think, would be really, really cool. I'm definitely looking forward to like when Mythic Bastion Land comes out. I want to talk about that too. But you much prefer the UVG as a setting than the actual game. Interesting, Ben. But thank you, Ben. That's very generous. And then we also had a super chat come in. Hold on a sec. Let me kill this text really quick. Torn, thank you for the super chat. Look at that. You helped fund the next first look. Thank you. Well, there you go. Between Ben's tip and Torn's tip, we're well on our way to another first look. Torn says, I prefer your more obscure RPG streams. Well, we have plenty of those. I run a TTRPG blog, and you help me be a better GM. Oh, thank you. And a player. And I learn new systems to talk about. I appreciate you and your channel, Derek. Well, Torn, thank you so much. And for getting my name right. It's a rarity in that world. So thank you very, very, very much. That's awesome. Again, I kid. So, hey, Thaddeus. Look at that.
Thaddeus tipped $25.
Well, Thaddeus, there we go.
Well, I think we have found what you will be streaming this week. Mythic Bastionland is almost ready to ship and the PDF is all done.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, boom, there you go. Our tip goals have been reached in the first 9 minutes of the stream. And that, my friends, is why I don't have to cover 5th edition D&D. Because in order to make that much money, I would have to do 100,000, something crazy, like a 75,000 view video. I think I love queuing up some first looks. I mean, the main thing for first looks, I'll be honest with you, is that if you really want to support it, tips and super chats help, but use the links, use our affiliate links. And I'll probably be a little bit more aggressive with those. We have an affiliate link for Amazon, and we have an affiliate link for DriveThruRPG. I get doesn't cost you anything extra. I get a couple of %, and when I can keep my DriveThruRPG affiliate link full, it makes it a lot easier for me to buy the PDFs and stuff, because the PDFs are getting kind of expensive. And when I'm buying 3 or 5 or them like a month, it does start to add up a lot. But well, Thaddeus, Ben, Torn, great job. Thank you so much. Appreciate that a lot. And I think I would love to look at Ultraviolet Grasslands. I would love to look at Mythic Bastionlands. I kickstarted all Mythic Bastionland. I was not aware that the PDF was available, Thaddeus. So that would be kind of cool. We should definitely take a look at it. Oh, yes, they've definitely been creeping up in price quite a bit. And by the way, we haven't seen nothing yet, because once these companies realize, I think today it went up to like 100% markup on China. I mean, who knows if that'll last a week, a month. a year, it's hard to say. And of course, even if it is a negotiating tactic, uncertainty is not the forte of good business practices, right? And worst of all, this is what I'm most concerned about, is that the prices do go up and the tariffs do go down or away or eliminated. And people just kind of go, well, that's like kind of the new normal, right? You go from paying $25 for a PDF or $75 for a book. The price goes to $150 for the book. The tariffs go away, and then we go back to $100, right? $100. And you're like, well, that's lower than it was before, but it's still $25 than it was higher than it was before. So we're just kind of this new normal of a higher value, and it just makes it that much harder and just much scarier. So with people, when more and more people start shifting only to PDF releases, you're going to see the PDF prices go up, because that's how people are going to have to pay their bills with. So that sounds good. So Roll for Combat says, it sounds great to me. Yeah. So these are the notes. By the way, there's like 7 pages of notes. Smith generates more in like a weekend than I do in like a year. We're going to be playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition with Chassis. We're using Battles of Bestiary with Eldamon, Ancestries, Dragons, Monster Hunting. We're also going to be using the Starfinder 2nd Edition playtest rules. The feel is going to be Star Ocean vibes, if you've ever played Star Ocean. It's a JRPG series. Majority of the campaign will take place on a single world. I'm not expecting a lot of space shenanigans or starships. Not opposed to Xenogears on the planet with mechs, but not something that we would expect to see at first level anyways. So, are the links pinned somewhere in the Discord? They are. I usually keep a link to the affiliate link in the description to this video, but also there is a thing on the Patreon. If you go to the KOLC FAQ link, which is up near the top, there's a link to our Amazon and our Drive-Thru RPG affiliate link. So, I mean, they kind of almost already were. So, yeah. I have no idea when the Daggerheart release date is. Sometime later this year. Oh, sick. That'd be awesome. I mean, I was about to say, Smith already owns every single thing that you guys have made, so that's not an issue. Daggerheart is next month. What is the status of Starfinder 2nd Edition now? It has to be done, right? It's probably printing. It's supposed to get released at Gen Con, right? Is that right? I think Starfinder 2nd Edition is getting released at Gen Con. Is that how right? Or maybe it's not. Or maybe it's Gen Con next year. I don't know. Maybe it's just Battlecry this year. I don't know. Starfinder 2nd Edition release date. July 31st, 2025. For the Starfinder player core. So there you go. Gen Con. Ooh, very cool. Yeah. I'll also point out that the games that are a little bit shorter are a little bit more appealing to me for my first look perspective, just because then there's a better chance that we can actually get through and into the rules and really get them chewed up. All right. Well, thank you everybody. Thank you Thaddeus, Ben, and Torn for the super chats and tips. Folks, if you still want to support me, I won't say no. I mean, like I said, I'm not looking to change how we do this channel. But there's economic instability in the future. I have some friends who've been looking for jobs for months, and have been unsuccessful. We have patrons who've also lost their jobs, and the Patreon is valuable enough to them that they've agreed. They're staying on because it's their main source of entertainment and shooting the shit, and I really respect that and really appreciate that. But the fact is, I don't know that I can snap my fingers and just go get another job. So with that being the case, it's nice that I can maybe turn to the channel and try to get through that. Torn says, "Thank you for never calling me Tom." Should I? Well, you don't love scrolling. Here's the thing. I do love scrolling through a 400 or 500 page PDF. To be fair, I'd rather scroll flip through a 400, 500 page book. The issue, Thaddeus, and you know me, this is why I don't like one shot. It bothers me when I make an assessment of the game, even though I make the big caveat that this isn't a review. I haven't played the game. I don't know everything about it. I'm sure I made some mistakes. I don't necessarily, this is just my first instinct, my first impression. But I miss stuff in those bigger, longer games. And maybe some of those big things, maybe some of those things that I'm missing are actually the things that would have made me love the game. So that's my only concern, is when I feel like I might miss something. And I think that's, that's a problem. Gonzo says, with all your free time, you should design a Shadow Dark Adventure module dungeon. Well, Gonzo, I mean, we were kind of joking about that. And then we did a stream last Tuesday because the patrons were like, oh, we'd love to see what your ideas would be, like on a high level, for like how you would lay out a mega dungeon for, say, Shadow Dark. And I did that on Tuesday just sort of as like sure, we'll take a look at it with no real intention of following up on it. I mean, other than maybe the occasional stream. And then I literally got let go the next day. And in fact, during that Tuesday stream, I kind of dug my own grave because I was like, the problem is I would never have the time to invest in to do something like this. And, well, I mean, I kind of do now. But to be clear, I'm very slow. I mean, I'm very slow. Now that you're job free, you could do 8-hour streams. I don't even know what we would talk about for 8 hours. All right. So today we are going to dive into a game called They Came from the Cyclops Cave, with a couple of caveats and a couple of things to keep in mind. One is there is a series of games that are They Came from ... And these are all games that are sort of tropey around 1950s and 60s and 70s films. There's one that's about like 1970s, 80s slasher films called like They Came from the Summer Camp or something. There's one that's about like 1960s sci-fi. This one, as I understand it, is very much around like sort of the Ray Harryhausen era of like, Clash of the Titans, Jason and the Argonauts, Sinbad type kind of real pulp fantasy films with some of the stop motion animation. Sword and sandal type vibe. So this is a line of games that kind of all use the same relative engine. Now, the name of that engine is called the Storypath System. And the reason for the sort of tongue-in-cheek joke on the thumbnail is that this is made from a company called Onyx. Onyx Entertainment, Onyx something or other. Onyx Path Publishing. And Onyx Path Publishing is basically, he's created the Storypath System. The Storypath System is a derivative of the Storyteller system and the storytelling system, aka the old, the World of Darkness games. So they've sort of taken that lineage and taken it from, the folks over at White Wolf, and they're kind of doing their own thing with it and their own spin on it. So there's going to be some natural overlap for people who are familiar with the D10 systems of the vampire system, and we'll take a look and see what this game system does that's different or not different than some of those game systems. Now, I'll be the first to admit I am not an old World of Darkness expert by any stretch of the imagination. I played a handful of vampire games when I was in my teens in the 90s. We played a hunter game very briefly, circa 1999 or something, circa 2000. And I was never a big fan of the system, if I could be completely honest with you. And I wasn't really a big fan of the subject material. But we'll see if this kind of goes a little bit different and gives us a little bit of a different vibe. So if you're interested in picking this game up, there's a link in the description below, but I would encourage you to use that affiliate link to see what other game systems that they are connected to this Storypath system if you see something here that is interesting. So I will give my common standard refrain here. This is not a review. I do not review games that I have not played extensively, that I have not engaged with, that I do not have what I would consider to be a workable experience with. Because there's so much more to a game than just reading the rules and pronouncing it being good or bad. What I can speak to is the quality of the rule set as it's presented to me my first impression just based off of this reaction, and me attempting to sort of answer Jared Sorenson's big 3 questions, which is, what is this game about? Does the game talk about that? Do the mechanics support that? And are there reward systems in place that help you drive towards the mechanics and the theme of the game? So let's take a look quickly at the table of contents. So we start with, what's a role-playing game? Example of play. Is this a comedy game? That's an interesting little point there. Inspiration and the God Smiles Upon Me. So it looks like there's a couple of different little short stories about, maybe the source material. Then we have chapter 1, the archetypes. This looks like our characters. We have the champion. And this is interesting because we have the appearance, lifestyle, connection, skills, trademarks, ancient art of training montage, like threading a needle, my grand used these herbs once, ride like the wind, these forests are no stranger to me, and tropes. And those are all on page 31. So this is an interesting table of contents, to say the least. Then we have another page full of tropes. And I clicked on the hyperlink. Well, that's good. And then an example character. So it looks like the character archetype is a whopping 2 pages long. And most of it is tropes and trademarks. We have the dreamer, the inhuman, the puppet, the sage, the scoundrel. So those are our archetypes. Then we get into character creation, where we pick a concept, a path, skills, attributes, trademarks, relationships, connections, and final touches, and finally make some tweaks. This looks to be like okay, so it's a different thing here. So we talk about inspirations for your character, the path creation. What's your concept? What's your advancement? We have the different paths that we just talked about: the champion, the dreamer, the inhuman, the puppet, the sage, the scoundrel. What is our origin path? So maybe it feels like a little bit like a life path system, which is not something I'm completely against. What is your quest path? Is it to be an Argonaut, Cursebreaker, right? So this already seems like it's very leaning heavily into the tropes of those characters. You can't just be any character. It looks like you need to be a curse breaker who's seeking knowledge in the arcane, perhaps to free your village from an ancient curse that was laid upon it by an evil witch, right? Perhaps you're an Argonaut seeking some sort of ancient relic or artifact that will prove your right to inherit some throne. And I think that's kind of interesting. Then we get into skills, attributes, and stunts, which is kind of more probably the meat of the system. We've got almost 12 pages there. And then we get into the system. How does this game system work? It talks about the Storypath system in generic, when to roll dice. We can see forming dice pools, so it is a dice pool system. So definitely feeling like it's maybe a D10 dice pool system like the original World of Darkness was. We have stunts, directorial control, and degrees of success. So hints of narrative elements creeping their way into here, because we see things like failure, consolation, rewrites. These are all very narrative, sort of narrativism-based mechanics. Conditions, fields, and scale. Not quite sure what that's about, but it's 1 page. What kind of sequences can you have? Adventure, investigation, and drama, the 3 types of sequence. So a sequence sounds like it's maybe an encounter. So we have the adventure sequence. We've got information about combat, some combat conditions, prone, damage tags. But again, all of this is literally on, it seems like this is a huge thing, but it's all on 1 page. So the whole combat chapter looks like it's only like 5 pages long. Investigation is a whopping 2 pages long. Gathering clues, successes as enhancement or rewrite. So there's sort of maybe an era here of, gumshoe-esque investigation, maybe, where the investigation is a tad bit quantum. And then a drama, which looks like it's some kind of social conflict system. It's talking about influence, shifting attitudes, and the like. And then we have a list of cinematic powers involving quips, cinematics, and magical effects, literally leaning in not only into the trope of the subject material, but to the trope of it being a movie about that subject material, right? It's not just, you're playing sword and sandal. It's a sword and sandal film. So we have a cinematics deck. Interesting. So it looks like there's maybe some sort of cards here. We got a bunch of different types here. And then we have a bestiary. And the director's chair telling us how the game works. Sword and sundry, the tropes, the theme, the mood. I mean, look at this. They filmed on location, and they have all your different, like, all your different areas where, of course, your Sword and Sandals film would be taken. So, and then chapter 8 is quests. So this must just be like adventures, and it looks like maybe they give you some, like, example of starting adventure, and then an appendix with everything in it, and that's that. All right. So we start off with a story about Sinbad, which we're going to skip, but okay. It's actually 2 pages. All right. Pandora's Promise. And look, see, it's even looking like it's even written, you know, this is like this is your campaign, right? And it's even written like an old movie poster. Yes. The 23rd voyage. Yeah, it's an old movie poster for sure. So again, you know, we're getting, so for those of you who know the obscure language of Knights of the Last Call, you can see that we're definitely getting into not G, not N, not S, but E, emulation. So this is a game that is trying to not just be a game and not just be a simulation and not just be about creating cool story arcs. It's about emulating the feel, the tropes, the pacing, the you know, sort of the meat and potatoes of this type of film from this type of era. And so we may see mechanics that aren't about creating a good game or creating a good story or creating a good simulation. They are about reinforcing the tropes and the commonalities of this type of game. Behold the sword of power, Excalibur, forged when the world was young, and bird and beast and flower were one with man, and death was but a dream from Excalibur. Which is a weird movie, but a little underrated. Yeah, not emulation, emulation. Now, if it was emu emulation, then yes, you could. So this is a role-playing game, which we're good here. This book is an avenue to all the fun you know from movies such as Jason and the Argonauts, Conan the Barbarian, and TV series such as Xena, Warrior Princess. Let's see here. Expect a certain level of hammy acting, over-the-top drama, and muscular bravado in this game. The movies and TV shows around which they came from, the Cyclops Cave, is based, offered the viewer chances to see plenty of those while heroes were busy fighting against the forces of darkness. Though fantasy gives shape to the epic core of this game, surrounding it is the amazement of fantastical lands, the thrill of deadly quests, the power of mystical artifacts, and of course, forced dialogue, bad special effects, and silly plots. Fear not. This game contains enough detail to be played with utter seriousness. I expect you to defeat evil sorcerers and slay calamitous monsters in order to save endangered kingdoms and appease the gods. But the playing of it and the indulgences of the genre are designed to engage and amuse. Not even the threads of fate will ever force you to add humor to your legend in the making, but we supply the tools to make your stories as entertaining as the most colorful fantasy feature. Now light the bonfire and sharpen your blade, because your journey is about to begin. So coming right out here and saying, again, you know, this is like, you know, it's epic journeys in a fantastic world of myth and legend, but it's also got some of the, you know, campy nature and there's a bad special effects, you know, which, you know, it's definitely a you know, a tip of the hat. It's a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So, yeah. A lot of text. Wow. Just bricks of text here. The archetypes hold the nature of the subject. So this is just talking about like the different archetypes. Here we go. Tropes. All right. What is a role-playing game? Oh, I think we know what role-playing games are. They're called the director. The GM is called the director. If you follow the rules laid out in this book, you can create a character in around 30 minutes. If you prefer to play fast, come up with a concept first and build the character on paper later. That'll only take 5 to 10 minutes. What is a role-playing game? I keep forgetting. The director sets the scene, akin to one of the earlier examples in the battle to conquer the castle's courtyard or inside the treasure vault, and then something happens to dislodge normality. Each player speaks for their character, letting us know their concerns, their hopes, their theories, and their plan of action. When the director introduces a new beat to the plot, notice even the language here, and the director is adding a beat to the plot. This may be something as brazen as a giant throwing boulders at their ship while they sail nearby, or an infernal caldera erupting hordes of demon into the kingdom, or as subtle as 6 onyx statuettes turning into lethal spiders while everyone sleeps. RPGs are as simple as complicated as you wish them to be, blah, blah, blah. All right. So we have an example of play here, which I think we'll mostly skip. But it's, well, I like the way this is laid out with the colors and little symbols. I think that's interesting. What do you guys think? Do you like these examples of play? Does this help anyone? Does this help you when you see these examples of play? I mean, right now it doesn't look like it's much different than pretty much any other role-playing game ever. I saw something about a rewrite here, and I wanted to say this. So again, you can see here, I mean, we want to talk about narrative mechanics. So Francesco at some point, I don't think it's worked out for me. I roll 6 dice and I get a 1, 1, 4, 5, 5, 7. Not good. And then the GM, the director, says, that's true. You rolled no successes and rolled 1s. That's a botch. So definitely World of Darkness nomenclature. We'll add 2 rewrites to the writer's pool, but you're also going to suffer a catastrophic failure shortly. So we're adding rewrites to the writer's pool. So this is definitely, I mean, this is extremely strong narrative elements to the point where, it's literally, people never talk like this. It does feel very forced. It does, Derek, it does. Is this a comedy game? That's what separates adventurers from walking snacks for Cyclops. Clever questions. Heroic fantasy wouldn't be the same if played out as pure comedy, but even at its grimmest, the genre is filled with darkly comic and sometimes farcical moments. Fantasy enables escapism by its own nature, which means laughs, whether intended or not, or bound to happen. We might refer you to the pulp nature of Conan the Barbarian or the whimsical feature that was the magic sword. We could tell you about the 7th voyage of Sinbad or Hercules, the legendary journey. In short, fantasy media comes with a range of tones, and we feel like this game works best if you utilize them all to the degrees that your players find enjoyable. So, couple of things. Hero point, let us simheads have at least that. No, Beowulf, I appreciate that they're calling these things what they are, and they're not trying to obfuscate them behind some bullshit, terminology designed to, appease people who want that thing but don't want to admit that they want that thing. So I'm all for it. Call it what it is. Let people know how to use it by calling it what it is. Now, Pathfinder says, aren't they all possibly comedy games? They certainly are. However, this game says it is about that thing. That's our first step. The second thing is, does it have mechanics that support that thing? And that can make the difference, Pathfinder PhD, about whether or not this is a comedy game. And this game apparently does. Which is, they came from the Cyclops Cave, contains a system device. So this is a systemic device. This is a mechanic called quips with a capital Q, which helps facilitate the humor element of the game. Adventurers come equipped with quips from the point of their creation. These catchphrases are to be used in dramatic situations for mechanical bonuses, as described in the Cinematic Powers chapter. Likewise, the cinematics and magical effects covered in that chapter all lend to the comedic feel of the game by allowing characters to summon stop-motion creatures, create marvelous rainbows out of nowhere, insert storyline absurdities, and have the entire thing feel a little more like an entertainment production than an epic legend. Beyond this, we also introduced the random elements of fiendish plots and fantastic settings, and each character has stunts and tropes at their disposal. This game is a big toolbox, and directors and players should take the elements they want, leaving the rest buried under the dragon's hoard. Huzzah. On the subject of comedy and fantasy, directors should ask their players before running the game what kind of game they want to play. It's a good idea to find out what works and what doesn't. If something needs scaling back or ramped up, that's fine. Adjust to suit. Have fun. And then we have a big section here on metagaming. This is an interesting statement, and so I'm going to take a look at it because this is something you don't often see. In many RPGs, metagaming is a dreaded word. The concept of metagaming in the context of RPGs is applying player knowledge to a character situation. For instance, you, as a player, may know gold-hoarding dragons in mythology and fiction tend to have a weak spot in their otherwise impervious hide. However, your hero has no way of knowing that. If you, the player, use your knowledge to aim for the vulnerable spot as soon as the dragon appears in the scene, it can erode tension and hamstring drama, as well as making the mighty draconic terror look like a mere pest. However, metagaming in Tukuka is encouraged via certain paths. The cinematics listed in the Cinematics Power chapter allow players to step back from their heroic roles and affect scenes from a directorial perspective. And, you know, we've talked about this before on the channel, this idea of approaching the game from author stance, actor stance, and yes, director stance. So this is clearly stating that we have mechanics that are not only encouraging, but require the player to step back from their role as either actor or author and approach the game from a directorial perspective. Making your adventure suddenly convince the foulest monster to reconsider the error of its ways, guaranteeing a trick shot hits the target, or having your character inexplicably return from the dead because you used a cinematic all count as metagaming, a little like a cheat mode on a video game. This kind of behavior is encouraged in Cyclops' Cave, as these powers are designed to further increase the fun of the game, as well as to make it more cinematic, as the name implies. And it's interesting because I think the term cinematic is loaded. People assume cinematic means like, you know, nail-biting tension, but what really cinematic means is it's like the cinema and how things work in the movies. You're reading, and we'll hopefully be soon, a rare game where metagaming in this way is rewarded. So this answers our third question right away, which is, okay, what's the game about? Does the game support that with mechanics? And then does the game reward you for that? And according to this intro, it does all three. Just be aware that the metagame actions you take as a player are not known by your character. So this is very clearly trying to put you as the player into two different roles. You have a role as the author or actor of your character, but you also have a role as a player in the game, being a part of that sort of directorial or editorial concept. Except in very specific forms of play, your hero doesn't believe that they're the character in a fantasy series or an actor playing a fictional persona. So it's not like some sort of weird ikisai or ekisai or whatever it is, right? Like your characters don't know they're in a movie, literally, but you, the player, do. Inspiration. You should absolutely pull plots from Xena episodes you love. You should absolutely use villains from Michael Moorcock's works and characters who strongly resemble Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Campbell. Hercules, Xena. Keep in mind the prolific bigotry of the time, however. They often field white male protagonists who treat, women as objects and a lot. So we understand that that's not always the thing that we have to do. But here are some of the films that they are grabbing from. The Thief of Bagdad, Ulysses, The Magic Sword, Hercules, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. That's a cool. That's a very cool old school piece of art. I like it. Looks like a Jason and the Argonauts, a favorite of mine growing up. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Hawk the Slayer. Clash of the Titans, which is like one of the first movies I can remember. Dragon Slayer, yes, with a young Peter McNichol. Very weird movie. There's Excalibur, 1981. Conan the Barbarian. Hell yeah. Beastmaster, another good one. And R.I.P. to, what was her name? Tawny, is it Tawny Katane? Is that her name? No, not Tawny Katane. What's her name? She played the mom of Donna in That 70s Show. Tanya Roberts. She played in that movie. And to John Amos. The Dark Crystal, naturally. The Sword and the Sorcerer. This is one of my favorite pulp action fantasy movies. Yeah, the guy had this triple bladed sword that shoots out different blades. It's totally camp. Tanya Roberts equals Red Sonja. No, Red Sonja was played by Brigitte Nielsen, Brigitte Nielsen, who was dating Sylvester Stallone after they made Rocky IV together. And Arnold Schwarzenegger appears in Red Sonja as a muscle-bound barbarian guy, but same difference. Now that's a movie, Red Sonja. I mean, Conan's great, but Red Sonja's on another level. I also think that the same actress who plays the villainess, the queen, in Conan the Destroyer, the second movie, is also the villain from Red Sonja. We've got Crawl, we've got the Black Cauldron, we've got Labyrinth, we've got Masters of the motherfucking Universe. There's an underrated film. Willow, one of my personal favorites, and a movie that I've probably seen close to 50 times. Princess Bride, Army of Darkness, all those mid-90s Hercules, Xena spin-offs. Dragonheart from 96, Lady Hawk, Legend. I love every single one of these movies. I cannot, dispute that. All right, the Merlin one with Sam Neill. I remember this one. This was on TV. Not as much of a favor. Oh yeah, Lady Hawk was fantastic. Rutger Hauer, a young, gorgeous Catwoman. Oh man, I'm getting so old. Michelle Pfeiffer. That's what I was trying to think of. It's a great movie. Not gonna lie, like even last year during like the solar eclipse, I was like thinking, I was like, now look at her and look at me. That's from the end of Lady Hawk. All right. So many touchstones here, and so clearly this is right. When you make a game like this, it's a labor of love because you love those movies and you want to create a game that sort of reinforces those experiences. All right. Hercules and the Golden Apples of Doom. More narrative fix. More narrative things here. The Seal of Flames. I really appreciate that they're sticking to this trope of all the different movie posters. All right. That's a great line from Zeus from Clash of the Titans. Let the stars be named after them forever. As long as man shall walk the earth and search the night sky in wonder, they will remember the courage of Perseus forever. Even if we, the gods, are abandoned or forgotten, the stars will never fade. Never. They will burn to the end of time. As a youngin who hasn't seen most of these, what would chat recommend for an entry point? Great question. That's a great question. I guess it depends on how far back you want to go. Willow, you know what, Beowulf? I agree with Beowulf. It's my favorite. I'm biased, but I think Willow is a great choice. Because it's campy. Dragonheart's from 96, so it's a little bit newer. But see, I would say stay away from Legend. Legend is a little bit weird and a little bit out there, and it's a little bit too much. Clash of the Titans, the original one, the 1981 one, is great. It definitely has that Ray Harryhausen magic. But I think I mean, I love Conan the Barbarian, but Conan the Barbarian is a weird film because there's very little dialogue and there's a lot of orchestral music. I think Willow, Dark Crystal. I actually think Conan the Destroyer is a better fantasy adventure film than Conan the Barbarian. Princess Bride was on the list for sure. All right, so when you make a character, you have to be one of the 6 archetypes. We have the champion. You are great. I stole the baby from you, Daikini, while you were taking a pee-pee. You are crawling with brownies. Whoa, I hate brownies. I hate brownies. Hello, this is my husband, Lug. Where is he? Where is he? Hello, husband. There's no one here but me and my cousin, Hilda. Oh, Hilda. Wanna breed? Tempting, but, nope. I could probably quote the entire movie. R.I.P. Val Kilmer. I loved Val Kilmer, by the way. Like, I loved every single movie of his, except for maybe some of his later ones that were kind of sus. But, like, Real Genius, Willow, Top Gun, Tombstone. I mean, these were some of my favorite movies growing up, for sure. Not a woman, not a woman. Gentlemen, meet Lug. Now, there is a this is a complete side tangent, so I apologize. I'm going to go to the green screen. I grew up watching Willow, and I used to watch it whenever I'd stay home from school. I'd watch like Price is Right. You know, if I was sick, I'd watch Price is Right and I watched Willow. And I must have seen this film, you know, again, like I said, over 50 times, if not more. And I remember even at a young age, I remember starting to play D&D and getting more into it. And even as I played into 3rd edition, I was like, there is something that I noticed when I grew up watching Willow, which is that, you know, Val Kilmer's character, Mad Mardigan, most of the characters, even on the bad guy side, were fighting with swords, and they would punch people a lot. They would, you know, swing their sword, it would get blocked, you know, they would get tangled up with the other person's sword, and then, bam, you know, they'd punch the minion or whatever, the mook, in the face, and they'd go tumbling down, right? Or they'd be fighting with swords, and then it would turn into a grapple. It would turn into a struggle, and they'd be grabbing weapons from the ground. And I remember playing D&D, even from an early age, and certainly as we went through 2nd edition into 3rd edition, and being like, no game has ever felt like that or played out like that until I played Dungeon World. And Dungeon World was the first time I played a quote-unquote fantasy TTRPG where the structure and the nature of the rules and the sort of the even flowness of it and the sort of soft move, hard move, partial success, full success gave rise to a combat experience that finally felt like all of the sword and sorcery movies that I grew up watching in the 80s. And that's one of the reasons why I had such a strong affectation for Dungeon World for so long, and still do to a certain extent, because it feels like those films that I used to watch. And no, you know, all the TTRPGs that I played, the D&Ds, the Pathfinders, never felt like any of that. The D&Ds and the Pathfinders felt like playing a JRPG. It felt like playing Final Fantasy. It felt like, you know, the bad guys are over here, my characters are here, click, I select attack, they come forward, you know, they come forward, they do their damage, they step back, and it's this very, like, well-ordered procedure. We're all taking our times. Red Rover, let the enemy hobgoblin come over, right? It's very, very, very structured, and it didn't feel wild and chaotic. It felt very procedural. It felt very clean. And that was just not what I was used to growing up watching these films. And so anyways, that's one of the reasons why I really liked Dungeon World. All right. The Champion. So this is one of the embodiment here. Again, there's not really any rules text here. It's just sort of talking about the idea of the champion. These are the embodiment of excellence, superhuman strength and spirit, taking the threads of destiny to themselves. They're, they are the warriors, the battlers, the people who fight the good fight. Yeah. And these are just examples. I mean, this really isn't anything here. So we have some examples of your connections about where you might be connected to. You might be a generous farmer or a grizzled veteran, kindly princess. These are the people you know. Champions grow into their power through varied quests, making them a diverse and versatile brand of adventurer. Recommended champion skills include close combat, command, ride, technology, but swap any two with enigmas and mysticism for a champion focused more on coming up with clever solutions. So these are recommended skills. It's not like there's some sort of hard-coded list. Here are a few examples of champion trademarks tied to skills learned from the lives before they answered the call to glory. No two champions are alike, so work with the director to create a new trademark if needed. So I guess we'll get into what trademarks and attributes are. All adventurers start with 3 tropes, with the champion's player choosing 2 from the champion list and 1 from anyone else's. So here we have the first time. We know we're starting with 3 tropes. We have to pick 2 from our archetype, and then 1 can be chosen from anyone. So our tropes are things like, as prophecy foretold, we are the chosen one, and one of the gods is interested in keeping us alive. We are battle forged. Our past life prowess, our prowess in battle seeped into our soul. Even that, we find a certain balance in the meal of fray. We have the devil's own luck. Heavy is the crown, lifting the sky dome. Toss a coin to your ... The sacrifice, a resounding rebound, mistaken birth. So here's an example of a great narrative consequence here. You're born under an auspicious moon as the prophecy foretold, except you weren't the only one born that day. You're not the chosen one, but it doesn't matter. Once per story, when it's time to accomplish the prophecy, introduce the real chosen one to the scene and describe how they save the day. Perhaps they fight in tandem with you or sacrifice themselves to permanently seal the portal to the demon realm. Heroes never die. Their legends live on, and you will be the one to tell that tale. What a weird trope. It's not me. It's the other guy. Weapons of old. And here's an example of a character. They're a champion with their origin path being that they are the chosen one, that they are on the quest of curse breaking. So the other archetypes we have is the dreamer. They're the idealist, embodying the wants and needs for a future, touching the hearts with their ideas. Trademarks. I can do this all day. Don't give up. A stranger is just a friend I haven't met yet. What a nice, ferocious beast. And then we have some tropes here. The power of friendship. Did he just say that? Shattering glass by using your voice. Large tracts of charisma. There's a lot of inside jokes here. Let's see if can chat identify where that's from. Large tracts of charisma. Take care, Beowulf. Nice having you stop by. There we go. Pathfinder PhD. Huge tracts of land. Excellent. I love this community. They know their stuff. So, for example, Liar, the hidden prince, aka Edward from Final Fantasy. We also have the Inhuman. Okay, you're the strange creature, stranger in a strange land. Arms like catapults. Darkness is my ally. Breaker of chains. Ferocious roar. Jog the man's memory. There's a Princess Bride trope, right? Why walk when you can fly? We have the puppet. You are mythical beings, mischievous fairies, magical constructs gifted from the gods, yada, 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 yada. Questionable size, itty-bitty living space. Where did you go? Wild magic. We have the sage, which is sort of our learned character. Bigger on the inside, clear Doctor Who tropes. Good night, Voy. Good to have you stop by. The lamp. You possess an enchanted object that houses a spirit, djinn, or other magical entity. And we have lastly the scoundrel, of course. Your classic, rogue with a heart of gold, including the trope of well-oiled abs. You don't see this every day in an RPG product. I know a guy. Here's another little short story. In the land of Sogar Neft. One last wish. All right, so you want to make a character? So let's talk about making a character. First, decide on a concept. Choose 2 short-term aspirations and 1 long-term aspiration, okay? Step 2, path. Choose your archetype path. We just went over those. And assign 4 related skills. Choose your origin path and assign 4 related skills. Choose your quest path and assign 4 related skills. Then assign 3 skill dots to your archetype. I don't know where that came from. Wow. Ooh, my throat got dry real quick. Assign 3 skill dots to your archetype path, 3 skill dots to your origin path, and 3 skill dots to your quest path. So it's talking about skill dots. So this is very similar to World of Darkness. Step 3, skills. Assign 6 additional dots to any skills that you choose. Step 4, your attributes. Each attribute starts with a single dot. Assign your primary, secondary, and tertiary attribute arenas. Give 6 dots to your primary, 4 to your secondary, 2 to your tertiary. Choose a favored approach, force, finesse, or resilience, and assign a dot to all of the attributes associated with this approach, and then assign a free dot to any attribute. And dots, I'm thinking, are like ranks, which are like how many dice you get to roll. Step 5, assign 2 archetype-related trademarks, 1 origin-related trademark, and 1 quest-related trademark. Assign intensity ratings to each member of the party to describe your relationships. Assign 3 connections, 1 for each path. Connections can be contacts, factions, and access to a location, group, or helpful object. With the character gaining 1 of each of these at character creation, you can build more connections during roleplay. Lastly, pick 2 tropes from your archetype and 1 trope from any of the remaining 5. Choose 2 quips, then randomly draw a third. All right, so step 1, concept. What do you want to be? Like, I want to be a vengeful barbarian. I want to be a conniving alchemist. I want to be a wily bandit, right? So this is just like in Fabula Ultima, it's this idea of what is the general sort of, outside of mechanics, how would you describe your character? Like, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? We'll use the mechanics to probably, get to that, try to mechanize that concept. But, generally speaking, what are the tropes? What are the stereotypes that you want to lean into? Who do you want to be? Do you want to be like, well, I'm like Hercules, but blank. I'm like Sinbad, but, a little bit different. So summarizing them in a short phrase. Now, what aspirations do you want to accomplish? Aspirations are the goals you want your character to attain over the course of the story. These are moments, events, and achievements you would like to see happen, such as brawling in the name of your honor or taming a Pegasus. Action fuels the epic tale, so a good aspiration should be something your character must do or accomplish, instead of something they must avoid. Not only is don't get into a fight boring, it's difficult to achieve, it's also cowardly. Since aspirations come directly from you, your character is not necessarily aware of them. So these are not your character's aspirations. These are the player's aspirations for your character. When a character achieves a short-term aspiration, they earn 1 experience. When they achieve a long-term aspiration, they earn 2 experience. All characters must achieve their long-term aspirations before this can happen again. In addition, when every character achieves all their short-term aspirations in a single session, the entire group is rewarded with a point of experience. So it behooves players to not only guide their own heroes into the embrace of this reward, but to also assist their companions. So be an honorable friend, hero. Lend favors and coin to your allies and raise their spirits. So choose 2 short-term aspirations and 1 long-term aspirations. Short-term aspirations are goals that you can achieve in a single session, perhaps something cool you want to see your character do, or a scene you would like to encounter this session. Long-term aspirations are goals you achieve from arc to arc. They relate to one of the paths that you'll choose in step 2 and focus on how your character will grow or change. So this is extremely narrative stuff. I mean, this is literally you, the player, outlining not just to your character, but to the GM of, I want to see this happen, and I want to explore this idea. And it behooves the GM to make that thing come to reality. So this is very, very, very narrativist, very, very, very emulationist. Long-term aspirations might be defeat the Gorgon Medusa, to sail all the 7 seas, to reclaim my ancestral homeland, to assault Mount Olympus and bring the gods to heel. All right, paths. Paths represent your life experience, and in characters start with 3 paths: archetype, origin, and quest. Combined, they provide a gestalt of a character's family life, social experiences, current predicaments, and previously encountered traits. So that basically all your backstory, where you're at right now, are summarized by your archetype, your origin, and your quest. In addition to the narrative addressing, paths provide mechanical benefits such as skills, bonuses, and specialized abilities. The archetype path is the character's role in the story, and in accordance with the gods who molded them from divine clay? From clay, their most important aspect. It defines a character's natural instincts, whether they're more inclined to bargain with a sinister riddle weaver or caution on the head. So these are our 6 core archetypes. Write A next to 4 skills on your character sheet. These are the 4 skills associated with your archetype path. Let's pull up the character sheet. All right, here we go. It's a 1-page character sheet. So we have our name, my name, my character's name, my player name. What is the concept, the generic description of our character? What archetype did we? Are we a champion? Are we a sage? Then these are the skills of the game: aim, athletics, close combat, command, culture, empathy, enigmas, humanities, integrity, larceny, medicine, mysticism, persuasion, ride, survival, and technology. That's it. And you can have up to 5 dots in a skill. We then have our approach attributes, which are intellect, cunning, and resolve, might, dexterity, stamina, presence, manipulation, and composure. And then furthermore, these attributes are sort of grouped into approaches. So intellect, might, and presence are all grouped into the force approach. Cunning, dexterity, and manipulation are grouped into the finesse. And resolve, stamina, and composure are linked to resilience. So there's kind of an XY factor going on here. Here are our paths, which we're doing right now: the archetype, the origin, the quest. We have a space to write down our 2 short-term and 1 long-term aspiration, and then blank pages to write down our quips, tropes, trademarks, as well as what appears to be some sort of wound system here in the bottom corner. That's just a flesh wound. That'll leave a scar. Last-ditch effort. Don't forget me. Death scene. All right, so we'll write A next to 4 skills on your character sheet. These are the 4 skills associated with your archetype path. You can choose from the suggested skills, or you can just pick the 4 that you think fit your character. So it's not really like hard-coded. Just make sure you're able to justify your choices. Whenever you gain experience and advance in your archetype, you can advance these 4 skills. Origin, so those are our archetypes: champion, dreamer, inhuman, puppet, sage, scoundrel. That's like basically our class for all intents and purposes. Origin is where we're from. And this can be chosen one, folk hero, great mystery, hard life, noble, pariah, seaborn. And then the quest path bestows on all adventurers an important charge, whether they are worthy or not. Additionally, this path directs characters towards personal objectives, and which all too often become the supreme focus of the epic for the entire group. Write Q next to 4 skills on your character sheet. These are the 4 skills associated with your quest path. You may choose any of the example quest paths and their suggested skills, or just pick any 4. Just like the origin path, advancing this path with experience improves any of these skills, and you gain tread marks that link to them. Examples of quest paths might be Argonaut, Cursebreaker, Heart Turner, Lore Keeper, Monster Hunter, Thrill Seeker, and Vindicator. In short, each path, of which we'll have 3, we'll have our champion, archetype path, origin path, and quest path, consists of a short description, such as a scoundrel. For example, a scoundrel who was raised as a noble and must embark on a quest as an Argonaut, right? So you're kind of like laying out the basic foundations for your character. Connections, what connections you have. You start with 1 connection, but increase the number of connections as you gain particular power levels. So we'll start with 3 connections, 1 tied to our archetype, 1 tied to our origin, 1 tied to our quest. 4 skills. You can choose any 4 skills for each path, so long as they make sense. Distribute 3 dots among the 4 skills you choose for each path. You can put all 3 dots into 1 skill or spread them out among 2 or 3 skills. You cannot use dots from one path for skills exclusively in a different path for fear of your director's sword of Damocles being brought down upon you. Best not to risk it. I don't quite understand that, but lastly, your origin and quest path each have 1 trademark, and your archetype path comes with 2. Each path also comes with 1 connection, but we'll cover those later. So it looks like you're picking 12 skills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's 16 of them. So, okay. There's 16 skills, each rated from 0 to 5. No matter what, all skills represent your character's abilities and education. In addition to your path's skill dots, you will also receive 6 additional dots to distribute amongst any of your skills. These additional skills are not tied to the path you chose in step 2, so you may place them wherever you deem fit for your character's concepts. Even the gods do not have a say in who your character will become, so you can put just your dots anywhere you want. Attributes has 9 attributes rated from 1 to 5, divided into 3 arenas: the physical stats, the mental stats, and the social stats. We've discussed these before. The physical ones include might, dexterity, and stamina. The mental one, intellect, cunning, and resolve. And the social one, presence, manipulation, and composure. Rank the arenas in the order in which your character is most adept. 1 arena is your primary, another is your secondary, and the tertiary. Each character begins with a single dot in all their attributes, but then gets 6 more dots for your primary, 4 more for your secondary, 2 more for your tertiary. Attributes also have an approach. Approaches represent the various ways that you might deal with obstacles. The 3 approaches are force, finesse, and resilience. Each character has a favorite approach, their favored method. A character forced into the cage of a Cyclops who's just eaten but is always planning his next steps has his own preferred method of escaping it. A force approach might be to break the lock apart. A finesse might be to trick the Cyclops into thinking they're an ally or squeeze through the bars. And if they chose the resilience approach, they wait till the Cyclops' belly to rumble again. Only when it's reopened the cage will they discover the trap that she's laid. Place an additional dot in each of the attributes in your character's favored approach. No attribute may have more than 5 dots at character creation. What are you, some sort of demigod? If a favored approach takes you above 5 dots, assign the extra dot to another attribute in the same approach. All right, so basically, we're going to end up with a bunch of dots on our skills and a bunch of dots in our attributes. TLDR. Basically, these are going to be what we roll, I think, for our dice pools. Step 5, trademarks. What is your character's signature move? What line did audiences travel to cinemas far and wide to hear them speak? What phrase gets them out of trouble or helps a friend in dire need? When speaking aloud, are they more inclined to ponder internally about their work, exchange great quick words with fellow adventurers, or monologue at great lengths with enemies transfixed on every symbol? What's your character's cliche? And what would be the most exciting phrase for you to utter every story? Trademark represents the cliche, specialized actions we're all expecting a character to make over the course of a story. Trademarks are tied to a skill or an attribute. And whenever you use a skill or an attribute in a way that represents or reflects your trademark, you gain 2 additional dice to that roll. If the roll is successful, you gain directorial control, see page 99, over this scene. When the director grants you directorial control, you can use it at any point until the end of the scene. As long as your character acts in a way that fits with the trademark, you gain the additional dice and a chance at directorial control. You can only invoke a trademark once per story. I'm imagining a story is a session, but I could be wrong. Your character begins with 4 trademarks. Pick 1 trademark tied to your origin path, 1 trademark tied to your quest path, and 2 trademarks tied to your archetype path. Link each trademark to whatever skill or attribute seems most appropriate. You may choose any of the example trademarks or work with your director to create your own. Step 6, create relationships and connections. We're going to create one of these for each of our paths. Depending on the number of players you have, you decide what intensity level they are, 1, 2, or 3. Ben says, I hate it when RPGs use bespoke terms for things like session, but don't clearly call out what it means. Maybe, it's possible there was like a thing that it was defined. Unfortunately, story is like the most used term of all time in this freaking thing. Yeah. Is there an index? Because now I'm curious myself. Please wait. Just end all in dice. There we go. I guess it just does all end in cards. Index. Huge index. Wow. I mean, good for them, I guess. Huh? It's not in the back of the book, so we'll have to see. All right, so when we create a connection, we also have to decide if it's with a person, a faction, or access. And I actually kind of like that. Specialized locations, resources, or secrets that tied to your path. So you begin with one of these for each of your paths that you're doing. Name each connection, give them a short description, and provide it with a tag to further define relationships. And finally, final touches. Choose a name. Assign 3 tropes and 3 quips to a character. Tropes are special abilities useful to any character in the midst of a fantasy adventure, so like feats, while quips are epic one-liners you're bound to say at a perfect time. Tropes and quips give that character that extra bit of pizzazz. Pick 2 tropes from your chosen archetypes list and a single additional trope from any list. Next, choose 2 quips from any of the 6 quip decks. Or, for greater variety and unpredictability, draw them blindly. You can choose your quips from your character's archetype deck, since it'll pair best with their personality. But the most iconic characters are those who speak the unexpected, yet do so in a way that wins prestigious Academy Awards. Once everyone's drawn or chosen their quips, the director shuffles the quip decks into a single mixed deck. Draw your third quip from the top of this unified deck. Some randomness is mandatory. If you're not using cards, just roll dice and pick based off of the result, or cover your eyes and jab at the book. Or have another player decide for you. You've done well, hero. Surely bards and poets will sing your tales. So last week, you can make the following tweaks. We get to shift one dot from an attribute to another attribute, or a skill to a skill. So if we've kind of gone in a different route, we can kind of make a quick little adjustment there. We could create a new short-term aspiration because we've, done that. And then, hey, look at that.
I am strong, strong, strong.
Now, there's Mr. Damian Williams himself. Speak of the devil. If you're enjoying this, thank Damian. If you're not enjoying this, blame Damian. And lastly, we could abandon a quest and pick a new one. So at the end, we can kind of make some quick adjustments in case our character kind of turned out to be a little different than we wanted to. Inspirations. You've done great deeds this day, so let's take a step back and examine your work. Scan over your character sheet and make any final adjustments to dots, trademarks, tropes, or other features of the hero. Once satisfied, use this section to further inspire the story that you want to tell. So again, this very narrative forward approach of, I'm coming into this with a trope in mind. I'm coming into this with a stereotype in effect. I am looking to accomplish X, Y, and Z. I want this arc to play out. So it's not simu heavy at all. This section introduces questions posed that you might answer to help better decide and guide your character. What were your foundations? Like, what's your name? Did you take your parents' name, or is it a family name? Where were you born? What's your cultural heritage? All this background type stuff. Family, world, morality, cinema. What famous actress portrays your character in this story? Is this their first motion picture film, or are they a veteran of the silver screen? Why would people buy tickets just from your character? Are they a star, or would they prefer a more supporting role? So it's a very interesting way, again, really leaning into that emulationism of thinking of your character in the form of an actor or an actress. And of course, your character is all defined by paths. And of course, the game gives plenty of examples, but you can create your own as well. And they have some details rated as well here. As our path rating increases, aka the dot ratings here for archetype, origin, and quest, we gain more skills, more trademarks, more contacts, and more tropes. Each dot in a path costs 10 XP and grants 3 new dots to distribute amongst the linked skills. And we can see that because we go from 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 to 15. So remember, we're getting 1 XP for short-term aspiration, 2 XP for a long-term aspiration. So you're not really leveling up all that often. Feels like, I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel like you're going to be doing this like every other session. And here's some information about, what are the suggested skills. And remember, if just because you're a champion and they suggest close combat, command, ride, technology, we could pick whatever we want as long as, it fits our vision of what our character is, and we can explain to everybody how that's tied to the champion as well. Same thing with the origin. And again, they have these examples, but you can come up with your own as well. It's really more about the idea than the mechanics of it. Great mystery, hard knock life. Are you from are you a fallen noble? Are you a folk hero? Are you a chosen one? And then, your quest, what is it that you're here to do? If we're thinking like Conan the Barbarian, right? Conan the Barbarian, he probably more, would you say, probably more of a champion. But he certainly has maybe some scoundrelly elements. So maybe we end up taking 2 tropes from the champion path and 1 trope from the scoundrel path. In terms of his origin, well, I don't think he's really the chosen one. You could argue that maybe he's a folk hero, but I would say his origin path is, slave, which, they don't have it here, but that would be probably where I would want to go with that, although maybe pariah works. And then his quest path, at least in the first book, would definitely be vindication, redemption, and revenge. So that's definitely the quest of a Conan the Barbarian character, right? This idea of, you've experienced loss like no one can comprehend. The loss of your home, your village, your family. Very much in the trope of Conan the Barbarian. Oh, here we go. So here's our XP table. So, all right. So you get, it's a little bit faster than I thought. You get 1 XP just for showing up. So every time you show up to a session, you get an XP. If you get your short-term aspiration, you remember you have 2 of those, you get XP. If all the players achieve their character's short-term aspirations, you get a bonus experience point. If you get a long-term, you get 2. If you complete a quest, you get experience equal to the relevant skill plus attribute roll distributed amongst the players, a maximum of 1 each. So that's a quest with a Q. If the players spend half of the writer's pool in a single scene, the amount spent must be greater than 1. You get apparently no experience. I don't know if that's a typo or not. If you reach a story milestone, you get an experience point. And if you complete a story, you get 1. And here's how we can spend experience. 10 XP will add a dot to an attribute. 10 XP will change your favorite approach. 10 XP will add a dot to a new path or gain a new path. And then we can also add new tropes to our archetype or go out of our archetype. We can also add dots to our skills, and that's going to cost 3 to 5 experience points. So, assuming that we are attending the game and we're achieving some short-term objectives and some skills, it sounds like we might be getting anywhere from 3 to 5 XP per session, maybe. Could be a little lower than that, depending on your group and your pace of play. So potentially you might be able to pick up a new dot every session or 2. But if you wanted to save up for something like a new dot in a path or pick up a dot in an attribute, that is something that you're probably going to definitely have to wait for at least 2 sessions, if not 3. Seems like a reasonable pace of play. All right. Ooh, the Dreams of Arcadia. Oh, look at that. There we go. Yeah, everybody. Dragonheart was an awesome movie. A knight is sworn to valor. His heart knows only virtue. His blade defends the helpless. His might upholds the weak. His words speak only truth. His wrath undoes the wicked. And then the rest of this stuff, I don't ever remember them actually saying in the film. Because when he says it, it ends right there. Just saying. Actually, I have proof of that. I can go find that scene exactly. This is what he says this when he goes to Avalon and he meets with the ghosts of Arthur. But maybe that was from the screenplay or something, or from the novelization. I don't know. All right, so here's all our skills. It tells us that 1 dot means fair, 2 is good, 5 is perfect. Certain creatures, like the gods or demons, can have rating over 5, but this tends to be handled through the scale factor, which multiplies the result from a skill plus attribute roll by an order of magnitude determined by the creature's size, or if there's a lot of them. So here are different skills, and it basically just breaks down what every skill is and what 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 dots means for all of them. There's 16 skills in total. We are not going to go over all of them, but needless to say, they give plenty of examples, a paragraph or so, a couple sentences about the skill, and then an example of what 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 dots mean. So as an example, close combat. Close combat governs all forms of physical combat. Whether you're using fists, club, or something sharp and pointy, you can use this skill to non-lethally immobilize your enemies or jam a sword in their guts, depending on your temperament. We don't judge. With 1 dot, you're a self-taught warrior and know the best way to club a mammal, usually over the head. With 2, your combat skills now extend to martial arts as you roll, jump, and hop between strikes. 3, you're known as a knockout, quite literally. 1 swift blow from your fist or whatever's in it will literally make or likely make the opponent drop. 4, you're a weapon master or a demon with your limbs. Either way, nobody gets out of a scrap with you without a nasty scratch. And 5, when you fight, it's like watching a dancer made purely of water. So lithe and graceful are you. Plus, you can make the blood flow from your enemies as if from fountains. So we got all their skills here: athletics, culture, integrity, empathy, larceny, enigmas, medicine, mysticism, persuasion. Little sidebar here about when, it sounds like when you roll a skill, you're going to be combining a skill with one of the attributes. It says, never be afraid of getting creative with your skill and attribute combinations. If the combination makes a degree of sense and provides entertainment, you're on the right track. Smacking sense into a minotaur may feel like a close combat skill plus a might attribute roll, but you may prefer close combat plus cunning to target an already weakened area. Similarly, survival plus intellect makes sense for locating the safest place to hide from an approaching magical storm, but perhaps survival plus composure is your way of keeping it together when a ranger is shouting at you about your theory being wrong. Now, I like this idea, but to be clear, this is very loosey-goosey and comes down to a lot of GM mother may I, and ultimately results in the players just, I'm not saying that they're just going to pick the approach that gives you the most dots. But to a certain extent, it does encourage that, right? There's no way around that. And people are going to naturally sort of, take it upon themselves. Now, they may, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do that or that they, are going to be jerks about it. But it's certainly the case that could happen. Attributes, we have all our 9 attributes, again, describing might and dexterity and cunning and composure. And again, those can be rated 1 to 5. So, assuming that a skill roll is a attribute plus a skill, it looks like we'll be adding anywhere from 0 to 10 dice to our roll. Now, of course, we saw that if a trope applies, we get some bonus dice to our roll. So potentially we could get as high as 12 dice, but we're not sure. Stunts. Stunts transform otherwise mundane actions into interesting narratives, giving a heroic actions a sense of drama and dynamicism. When a player rolls to take an action and generates successes above what they need to overcome the difficulty, they have the option to purchase stunts. And I'm actually going to stop here, and I'm going to cut ahead to the system. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say this again. I do not like it when games teach you the character creation process. They ask you to put dots in fucking skills and attributes, and you have no idea what those fucking words mean. Put your rules first, people. Put your rules first. But points added back because they start this chapter with a great quote from the very beginning of Conan the Barbarian, when Conan's father is teaching Conan about the riddle of steel. The secret of steel has always carried with it a mystery. You must learn its riddle, Conan. You must learn its discipline. For no one in the world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust. Good stuff. All right, so the Storypath system is you are going to be rolling 10-sided dice. You determine how many of these dice you must roll. You and the director determine what combination of skills and attributes best suit it, and then you take a number of dice equal to your dots in both to form your dice pool and roll them all together. Each die resulting in an 8 or 9 provides 1 success, and a 10 gives 2 successes. Should you succeed, add your appropriate enhancements. We'll talk more about these later. I get that, like, sometimes it's just inevitable, but I hate when, like, they're describing things and then they have to basically be like, but you don't know what that is yet, but we'll explain that later. And I know maybe it's just, this is why writing rules is hard, but the additional successes provided may make your feat action into a feat of dynamic proportions. You spend successes to overcome a target's difficulty and any complication. The task fails if you do not acquire enough successes to overcome the difficulty, but you will still gain some form of consolation nonetheless. If you fail to generate any successes at all, and at least one die is a 1, then the result is a botch, which contributes 2 rewrites to the writer's pool, but also spells doom. at least temporarily, for your hero. And now throw another log on the fire and watch the sparks fly as I break down exactly what all of this means. Side tangent. I very much dislike this style of rules explanation. I'm not a big fan of like the folksy, just sit down with me and let me spin a yarn with you. I like Torchbearer a lot, but sometimes the writing is like this and as if someone is talking to me. And that's not what I want from a rule book. And I also feel like this is just wasted text. Maybe it helps you. I'm not a fan. That's just my personal take. So we have a thing here about when to roll dice. Whenever we're doing something dramatic and awesome and blah, 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 blah. We know this. The rule should be whenever success and failure advance the drama of a scene or the stakes are high, that is when the dice should make our appearance. Forming a dice pool. Before rolling dice, determine the size of your dice pool. Consider your hero's goal. Try to keep this to a single action. I want to steal the sapphire of Abakandar from the sorcerer's pocket. Find the skill on your character sheet best suited to this task. Then take a number of dice equal to your dots in that skill. Then ask, how is my character accomplishing this? Consider which attribute best reflects this method and add additional dice equal to your number of dots. So we're taking an attribute and a skill, we're adding it together. That's how many d10s we're starting with. This is our base dice pool. Any skill and attribute may be paired together. Stealing with sleight of hand is a possibility, but you might also distract the sorcerer with seduction and use a larceny plus manipulation. Finally, determine whether the action falls within one of your character's trademarks, special refinements of skills and attributes that help define your character. Two characters with 4 dots and mysticism may differ greatly if one has I see your future and the other has the ways of undeath. Once per story, this trademark can be invoked to add 2 additional dice to a roll and give an opportunity to take directorial control. Multitasking, mixed actions. Under ideal circumstances, you'll always have the time to focus on one task at a time. However, in less than ideal circumstances, such as being attacked by 2 orcs simultaneously or fighting off hot hail from while crossing a rickety rope bridge, you'll need to take a mixed actions. These allow you to do 2 things at once. When you're resolving your mixed actions, calculate your dice pool for each action as normally, then roll the smallest. All right. Rolling the dice. Each die shows an 8 or 9 as a success, while a 10 is a double success. A rule referencing double 8 or double 9 means 8 or 9s count as 2 successes as well. For example, a dice roll under the double 8 effect with an 8, 9, or 10 would result in 6 successes. I guess double 8 means that the double 9 also goes there. I guess double 10 is the base rule. Listen, just because you have a mighty bicep or skill with the arcane arts doesn't mean you don't want every advantage you can get. Whether through circumstance or capable planning, it is possible to gain or arrange enhancements, rendering tasks easier to accomplish. If you roll at least 1 success, relevant enhancements provide 1 or more additional successes to the total. They range from trivial to major. So this is a bit like Torchbearer, where you need to at least succeed and get 1 success before the enhancements come in. So, for example, if you had a notable advantage, then if you get at least 1 success, you add 2 successes to your dice pool, all the way up to a major enhancement, which is if you get at least 1 success, you add 5 successes to your pool. And sometimes these enhancements can hinder as well. If it has a downside, the director will choose one of 3 drawbacks. Add a complication, increase the difficulty of another action, or grant the antagonist a free enhancement to use against you. Difficulty is usually 1, and you only require a single success to succeed. Tasks of difficulty 2 require 2 successes, and each increase in difficulty afterwards requires an additional success. So 1's the default, but it can be potentially 2 or 3. Poll in chat. Actually, while we're just, chilling here, I got this new enhancement thing. I want to see, does this have a poll? Maybe it doesn't. Graphical poll. Oh, okay, yeah, it does, but I don't know how to do this. Anyways, all right, I need to experiment with this. Well, we're gonna have to have a stream where I play around with this new enhancement. Okay, poll. Give a grade to how much you like dice pool systems where you need X successes from your dice. In other words, you're like, okay, you're rolling 9 dice. You need, 8s, 9s, and 10s are successes. Then you count up how many successes you have. It's like, how many successes did you need for that one? Oh, you needed 2 successes. You need 3 successes. Your zero engine essentially works like this. Everything's a D. In the base your zero engine, you roll D6s and only a 6 is a success. Torchbearer, Burning Wheel work like this. 4, 5s, and 6s are basically successes, although Burning Wheel has shade. Mouse Guard, I'm just curious how much. Now, this is very different, right, from, rolling a dice pool, adding them up, comparing it to a DC number, or rolling a die like a D20, adding it to a static modifier versus a TN or versus a DC. But it feels like this is kind of like the other way of doing this, right? Legend of Five Rings is also like this. Yes. But I've seen some people say that they really don't like, counting successes, and they want like a number, They want something simple like, did I roll under the number or not? Did I beat the DC? All right. So that's our difficulty. You must spend successes to overcome both difficulties with a single roll for mixed actions. So if you do mixed action, you have to use your successes on both to try to do 2 things at once. Difficulties can either be static or opposed. Static difficulties don't change. Opposed difficulties when 2 characters seek to defeat each other. When both you and your assassin try to reach for the dagger, your odds depend on how fast they are. In situations like these, each participant rolls separately and compares total number of successes. The difficulty for the character with most successes equals the successes rolled by the character with the fewest. In other words, it's an opposed roll. I'm not like the hugest fan of opposed rolls. Whenever the difficulty of a task is higher than the number of successes that you rolled, your character fails the action. You may attempt to spend rewrites or accept failure and gain a consolation. All right. And the poll here, 50% of you said a B is how you would rate it. 25% said C, 18% A, 6% D. So on the bias, most people are more into it than they're against it. But it is telling that number 1 is B and number 2 is C. But B at 50% is not bad. So it means that people like this, but they don't love it in general. Complications. Sometimes your actions cause all sorts of other effects, like the consequences of stepping on a pressure plate in a room filled with darts, or opening a treasure chest without checking first whether it's a monster disguised as a treasure chest. These effects are complications that arise from actions, and the players must spend successes to overcome and prevent them from happening. Complications are different from difficulty, presenting problems that arise from the action rather than the reason that the action is inherently difficult to perform. Complications are rated trivial to minor, which reflects how hard it is to prevent that from occurring. Complications don't stop a character from performing their action successfully, but create problems due to that success. If they don't spend additional successes to buy off the complication, the unintended effects result from their successful action. If they fail to perform the action at all by not overcoming the difficulty, then the complication is moot. Complications serve to create an additional narrative turning point without stopping a character from actions. Certain actions may seem extraordinarily simple, such as cooking a hearty stew, but what the secret ingredient? Well, very few of them grow in this part of the world. There's just not much mesquite here. But you could use vanilla. All right, that's a bad example. Directors should use complications judiciously to introduce new twists and turns to the story. If you want to include additional consequences for failing a roll or set up a great time for a fiend or a lieutenant to arrive on scene, consider adding a complication rather than increasing the difficulty for an action. The complications rating does not necessarily indicate its severity, but it often can, with major complications indicating worse results than minor ones. Both difficulty and complications are tools that you can use to shift the thing. So, we have basically the core difficulty of the action, which is represented by how many successes they have. And then we can add complications to the action, which when you roll your successes, you're going to have a chance to either deal with the complication or deal with the core action. I'm not sure if it's saying this exactly, but there might be a situation. I wonder if there's a situation where, like, you buy off the complication, but you fail to get success. But as an example, you might gain a condition, you might suffer a social setback or embarrassment, you might take some damage, an antagonist might arrive on the scene. So this is very narrative, obviously. Zanny's now left facing an angry dungeon keeper, and she knows she'll have to subdue him. But first, she wants to create some distance between her and the hooded Hulk. The difficulty is 1, but the director tells Jean that backing up from the dungeon keeper will lead her open to strike. If she doesn't buy off a +2 complication, Jean rolls and gains 2 successes, spending 2 on backing up, but cannot buy off the complication. She somersaults backward at speed, but the dungeon keeper's whip successfully lashes across her stomach. Damien pointing out that you pay for your stunts with extra successes as well. So the choice becomes do the awesome thing or not take the complication, which is interesting. Once you roll, you get this pool of successes that you can either spend on the skill itself, on stunts, on avoiding or paying off the complications. I'm not quite sure. However, yeah, Sam, I don't know. Like, what happens? What happens if you don't? What happens if the difficulty rating is 2, and there's a complication which is 2, and I only roll 1 success? Does the complication still go off and I fail? I mean, I'm guessing that's how it happens. Stunts, directorial control, and degree of success. A smart adventurer seizes every advantage they can, but don't rest on your laurels. Anyhow, once you've bought off the difficulty and any complications, you use any remaining successes to your advantage. You can spend them on stunts, improve your degree of success, or in some cases, even seize directorial control. Damien says, if you fail the action, there is no complication. Okay. So you can't fail and get all the consequences for the complication. If I were to get, 2 successes and the base difficulty was 2 and the complication difficulty was 2, I would put the 2 into the succeeding, but I couldn't negate the complication. Got it. We addressed stunts earlier, but stunts are special bonuses achievable by your leftover successes on an action, allowing you to make your situation a little better or your opponent's situation a little worse. Each success spent on a stunt increases its effect by 1. There are 3 types of stunts. Complicated stunts, which is a terrible name, creates a complication for another character. Enhanced stunts create an enhancement usable for your character's next action. And difficult stunts, which is also a terrible name, increase the difficulty for a character's next action against you. Characters also have access to additional specialized stunts based on the skills associated with their actions, allowing them to perform additional actions above and beyond their intents. These stunts are rated simple, flashy, or daring. Okay, a wise adventurer notes the stunts they really enjoy to prevent. So you have ones that you pick, but you also have base ones. I worry, and the only reason I say I worry is because I've seen this happen in Legend of the Five Rings, a system I like. But in Legend of the Five Rings, when you roll a dice pool, you generate success symbols, which you use to succeed, but then you also generate opportunity symbols. And the opportunity symbols can be spent on various abilities, including a list of generic abilities, as well as ones that are specific to your character, depending on what kata or suji or whatever techniques they have acquired. And this leads to a lot of analysis paralysis. It can lead to a very big slowdown. It can lead to a lot of hemming and hawing. It can lead to a lot of pontificating and editorializing with the rest of the group, and a lot of committee every time a dice roll is made. For example, I'm going off on a little tangent here, but in Legend of the Five Rings, if a character performs an action that is in the water ring, and you generate opportunities, one of the options available to you is that you can potentially heal another character's fatigue. It's like damage. So every time someone makes a character or makes a roll in water, there's kind of an innately going to be a conversation around the table of like, is anybody hurt? Who's hurt? Is anybody hurt? Are you hurt? Okay, you're hurt and you're hurt. Who needs healed more? Blah, 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 blah. So it becomes kind of, it can slow down the game considerably. Just saying. Let's take a look. If you have Earth, you can spend an opportunity to reassure another character in the scene with your presence, allowing them to remove 2 strife. And if you are using a water ring, general, you can also remove one strife from. You can remove 2 strife from somebody else. I thought there was a way to heal somebody. I don't see it. Well, at least not according to this website page, but who knows? Turns out the opportunity tables for Legend of the Five Rings, a fucking hot mess. Guess, shocker. Because they are. It is a fucking hot mess. Yeah. Anyways, according to this table, it's strife and strife. I thought there was a way to heal fatigue, but maybe not. Anyways, okay. Directorial control. A hero's trademarks carry. So this is this is the thing that you do. You get 2 bonus dice, but they can also grant you the ability to gain directorial control, allowing you to alter the story directly, add or subtract details. Each extra success on a roll enhanced by your trademark detail may alter 1 detail. The past cannot be changed. So if you have directorial control and you generate extra successes above and beyond what you needed, then you can spend each additional success basically altering or changing an effect of the scene. The director generally decides how many successes a given detail requires to alter, but generically it is 1 success for each change. Changes from directorial control only last for the current scene. And by the way, some of these things are quite dramatic. The godly symbol you hold against your heart stops an arrow in its track. The assassin sent to kill you is an old friend of yours, long presumed dead, but now under the mental thrall of a sorcerer. The bust statue you're leaning against starts speaking. Whatever it says is helpful in another question. The enemy's magic carpet rolls up mid-flight, sending its bearer crashing into the ground. The scroll that you grab just happens to contain the vital information. The orc holding you at the point of his spear is filled with remorse and guilt about her job. So literally plot armor and plot changing. I mean, this is a little heavy-handed even for me, but I guess this is the trope, right? But again, it reminds me of that scene from Galaxy Quest where they stop the whatever it's called, the photon accelerator. They stop it from like going critical, and then the countdown keeps going even though they stopped it with like 10 seconds left, because it stops at 1 second, because of course it does on the show. Like even if you stop it early, it's always going to stop at 1 second. And it's kind of like ha 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 funny. And that's where they talk about like the humor and the things of this. I would have a hard time taking this game seriously, but anyways, once you've spent your successes to overcome the difficulty and complications, as well as any stunts you may have desired, you may spend remaining successes to improve your victory. So after you've paid off the difficulty of the task, paid off any complications, if you've used any stunts that you want, you can use anything remaining to make your degree of success, whatever's left over, makes it an even better version of success. If you have 2 successes left over after all that, you have mastered the situation. If you have 4 or more, it is a legendary moment, a sublime accomplishment. Now, what happens if we fail? This is always the problem with most RPGs, especially narrative RPGs. This gives you the magical weapon called rewrites, and even if you can't escape failure, the worst situations offer some form of consolation. Failure occurs whenever you gain fewer successes than the difficulty. Whatever problem you were trying to solve is not getting any better. In fact, if you roll no successes and at least one die is a 1, then you have a botch, which means that things actually get worse. New problems might occur or new complications might arise. Failure doesn't halt the inexorable march of fate. It just makes things interesting, which I like. But failure carries some minor benefits, provided you did not botch. The director provides what form the consolation will take. It could be a useful bit of information, a minor enhancement, or you adjust your tactics for a second attempt, or a twist of fate opens up a new avenue. No immediate consolation comes from a botch. If there's nothing immediately useful in the scene to serve as a consolation, the director may instead choose to add a rewrite to the writer's pool. As the javelins fly, one striking her in the leg, another in the arm, Zanny notices the carving in the door reads, "Beware the ooze." If she's going down, she's taking these orcs with her. So Zanny grabs the door handle and steps to the side as she tries to open it. Rewrites. Sometimes the consolation for failure needs to come at a later time. The momentum of the story, built by failures and rising peril, leads to a climatic moment, such as the moment you need to rise again after the troll has pounded you into the earth. You must succeed, but failure threatens to destroy it all. When these moments come, it is time to ask for a rewrite. Rewrites are a shared resource amongst the players in the writer's pool. The writer pool holds up to 3 rewrites for each player in the game. So with 4 players, you could have up to 12 rewrites. Every failed roll that does not bring about an immediate consolation adds a rewrite to the pool. And botched rolls, where you roll a 1 and fail, add 2 to the pool. They allow you to do several things. 1, you can activate a cinematic. Each cinematic lists its own rewrite costs. 2, gain an additional attempt at a complex action for 3 rewrites. Or add dice to a dice pool, spending 1 rewrite for each die added. Only half of the pool can be spent in such a matter. Anytime you wish to use a rewrite, you will need the approval from the writer's room. This requires you to discuss your intended use of the rewrites with the other players. If everyone agrees, your changes are added to the script. If anyone vetoes it, though, the discussion continues or the story moves on. Zanny's, remember she was trying to pull open the ooze door? Zanny's desperate to pull the door open, so Jean pitches an idea to the others. She wants to spend 2 of the writer's pool 3 rewrites to increase Zanny's chance of yanking the door open with her desperate strength, setting the blob upon the unsuspecting orcs. One of the players suggests a couple should be saved for later. After more discussion, Jean and the other players agree to use one of the rewrites to improve Zanny's chances of success. As she twists the iron handle and pulls, the door opens a fraction, and it's enough to set the blob free. This is pretty heavy-handed. Now, Damien, who has been advocating for the game, says, this game is not meant to be taken seriously. It's meant for fun interaction. It's a great, short, palate cleanser game for a few weeks. And Dr. Wade says, oh, Lord, this writer's room stuff is where it lost me. It is very heavy-handed. I don't necessarily know that it's bad, and it's definitely doing what it said it wants to do, but it is very heavy-handed and in your face with it, and you cannot deny that. So what happens also, potentially depending on whether you fail, but also from the complications that come from failure, there might be considered conditions, fields, and scale. Conditions linger upon you, aiding or hindering you. Fields can have similar effect, but apply to more than one individual. And some of the threats you may face may have strength on a scale beyond human limitations. Conditions affect a single character, giving them problems or advantages for an extended period of time. You might dislocate your shoulder, etc., etc. Whenever a condition causes a significant setback for your character, add one rewrite to your pool. Every condition has at least one way to resolve them. Some go away after a certain amount of time passes. Some require certain actions to take. Some could take weeks of rest. Conditions, complications, and enhancements only affect a single character. By contrast, a field impacts everyone in the same mental or geographical space. A field of enthralled applies to everyone receptive to the enchanter's bewitching magic. While a fist fight on the surface of a ship rocking on fierce waves, everyone suffers the unsteady field. Fields allow directors to make scenes more engaging. I don't know that I like this terminology. You're just reusing aspect terminology from Fate, but giving it a weird name. But yeah. This allows you to add complications, conditions, or enhancements to all characters in a basically the whole everyone in the zone, everyone in the scene. And lastly, scale is if something is much larger than you or there's a lot more of them. And in this case, they have a rank of scale. And if they have a larger scale, then they gain additional bonus successes just from the size of them. So, for example, rank scale of 1 is pretty baseline. But if you're fighting against something that is incredibly scaled, they're going to gain 4 bonus successes against you just from being that much bigger than you. Types of sequences. So sequences is what happens when we get down to the nitty gritty. These are round by round or slow motion. This is basically our combat or initiative order. At other times, things happen over an extended period, requiring compression. These are our complex actions or slow or montage sequences. So we've got our slow-mo sequences and we have our montage sequences. So we have a round. We get initiative. I just hate initiative. Round is the amount of time it takes for each character to go once. When a focus is on you, it's your time to act. We decide that with initiative. The order is determined by each character's tick. So you take your actions. We've got ordinary actions, mixed actions, reflexive actions. I don't really care about all this. We roll for the characters we control. The number of successes is their tick rating. The character with the highest tick rating receives focus first. But if you did gain initiative, you can take your action, but you could also give your action to somebody else, making initiative even more pointless. Complex actions take place over multiple rounds or scenes. We get information here about range, maneuver, all sorts of complicated stuff here. Close range, this is a generic system here. Close, short, medium, long, extreme. Those are our ranges. The combat roll, you declare one or more actions or attacks that you want to make. You form a dice pool. The difficulty is usually 1, unless otherwise affected. Roll your dice pool, tally your successes. Use your successes to buy off the difficulty of actions you want to perform. If the action succeeds, use any remaining successes to purchase stunts and determine the final damage rating. The target then decides to accept or resist the damage, and any injuries or conditions are applied. So it sounds like not only do I have to roll a dice pool to determine if I hit, then I have to spend additional decisions to buy stunts. But then after that's done, I also potentially have to roll to resist the damage. If you use your action to defend yourself, compile your dice pool as normal for the action. Defense is difficulty 1, and additional successes may be spent on defense stunts. Yeah. And then here is what they talked about earlier, right? And this is what I was complaining about Legend of the Five Ring. Here are all the base stunts that like everybody has access to outside of just the stunts that you get from your, build, your specific things. So here is all of the ones that you can use. This is analysis paralysis fucking city. I know this because this happens in Legend of the Five Rings. So every time you make a combat roll and you get enough successes to have more successes than you need, you're going to be like, okay, do I want to increase damage? Do I want to blind them? Do I want to disarm them? Do I want to feint? Do I want to knock down or trip them? Do I want to pin them? Do I want to seize them? Do I want to shove them? Yada, yada, yada. It's crazy. We got conditions of prone, ambush, different damage ratings, damage tags representing what kind of damage it is. Is it a shockwave weapon, a silent weapon? This is kind of crunchy for a system that is talking about the writer's pool and tropes and being like, ha ha ha, the statue starts talking to you to give you the answer to the riddle. We've got damage ratings of freezing water, lethal gas, rules for armor, stuff about, conditions, medical treatments. When you suffer your final injury, you're dead. Don't forget coins for the ferryman. Time slows to a crawl during a death scene. No matter how grievous your wound is, you always have a chance for last words. Even during round-by-round actions, focus shifts instantly to a dying character, enabling them to shine in their moment. If you fail or botch your roll with additional dice, the last-ditch effort is filled. Make any dice rolls, or if you fail to shrug it off when Don't Forget Me is filled. Here's detailed information about what being blinded, cursed, enchanted, panicked, paralyzed, stunned. We've got levels for antagonists. I don't know why this is just like randomly here in this section. Oh, because it's getting into the characters. So we've got basically encounter building rules. Like a minor antagonist is going to add 20 experience put to the pool. This is how many dice that they have, I'm guessing, how many conditions they have. So we've got information about how to build NPCs, scene combat, dynamic combat. And then we have information about how to run investigation. Every time you get an additional success, you would assemble an additional pool or you get an additional clue. So it is kind of like Gumshoe. You can also use your successes as enhancements or rewrites. They can help future scenes, but you can also try to rewrite the uncovered clue, changing what it represents and what it means. Here are some things you might do: analysis, decipher, interview, etc., etc. And then in a drama scene, we have basically social combat, but it seems pretty simple, more around modifying attitudes and shifting attitudes. All right. And then we have cinematic powers. These are the things that your character can use. And these are actually the ones that, like, quips and stuff get generated from a random deck of cards, or you just point on it. When you deliver a quip, you sound heroic and you gain up to 5 additional dice for a roll. When the moment is right, and you will know the moment, that's very helpful, simply utter one of your quips aloud, letting the world know of your daring bravery, keen understanding, or your complete madness. The oracles who wrote the cards speak in other tongues, so some details, such as archetypes and pronouns, may have been lost in the translation. Feel free to make minor changes to the quip as needed. You should also insert dramatic pauses and appropriate emphasis wherever you feel appropriate. It's your quip. It should feel right coming out of your mouth. You need not deliver your line earnestly. Many heroes find solace in sarcasm. Once you delivered your quip, show your comrades in arms and let them vote to decide whether this truly was the right moment. Yeah, that's awkward. If your fellow players and the directors tie or are cheering too hard to vote, you can add additional dice to your next action. Successful or not, you may choose to retain the quip or discard it and draw a new quip, which is a random deck from the mixed deck. If you roll at least 3 successes after a successful quip, it becomes the stuff of legend, granting you strange powers. Firstly, you can hold on to your legendary quip until the end of the story arc instead of at the end of the current session. More importantly, you may choose to draw an extra quip or instantly use a cinematic, including magical effects, without having to pay the rewrite cost out of the writer's pool. If the dice failed to provide 3 successes, but you feel your quip was too well timed to not be legendary, you can ask, so if you don't roll enough successes, you can still be like, hey, director, add a twist to the scene, such as an unexpected power from the hidden curse deck, and instead it becomes legendary because it was just so dang good. Each player starts the game session with 3 quip cards. They choose or randomly draw from 2 quips from any of their 6 decks. Then, after they've drawn the 2 of them, we shuffle the remaining ones into a mixed deck, and then you draw one. So here's a list if you want to roll randomly instead of generating. So let's say our character, right? We've got Conan the Barbarian. That was our character. And I said we were going to choose 2 quips. We were going to say he was going to be a champion. So I'm going to roll a d20. I got a 7 and I got a 1. So our quips are, hold it right there, evildoer scum. And this is for the people. And then I also said that I would take one from, technically it would just be completely randomly rolled at that point. So I will roll a d6. It's from the second one, which is the dreamer. And my third quip is, you are but a shadowy reflection of me. A mere nudge would bring you back to the light. So if I could figure out a way, when the moment is right, and you will know the moment, I can bust out a quip and gain bonus dice. And if I get three or more, it's a legendary success. Fun, sure. Wonky, absolutely. Literally randomly pulling out quips from a deck of random deck of cards. And then we also have our cinematics. These are the big, powerful things. They cost rewrites out of your pool. For example, Among Giants costs 4 to 5 rewrites out of the group's pool. Action fantasy films often try outdoing each other, creating bigger and bigger adversaries for their heroes to clash against, until the monsters are so big that it makes little sense for the human actors to be participating in the scene at all, such as the battle between the Cyclops and the dragon in the 7th Voyage of Sinbad. But through the miracle of onyxmation, this limitation can be overcome. When you use this cinematic, your hero undergoes a transformation, powered through stop motion, rear projection, CGI, or any other VFX technique. This new form lasts until the end of scene and grants you a scale equal to the size of the most powerful foe in the scene. You literally basically go, it's morphin time, and become giant sized. If you spend 5 rewrites, an additional hero is merged with you during the transformation, typically as a 2-headed giant. You share focus and a single injury track, but you can both take your usual number of actions. So this is pure, absolute, utter, complete, and total nonsense, right? I mean, like, on a scale of which I don't even think we can properly be appropriate. Sure, you could ignore this one cinematic, but this is one of many, and I'm not saying they're all this over the top. But as Damien said, like I said, the game they came is not a serious game. There are straightforward Storypath games like Scion or Trinity. So if you're interested in something a little bit more normal, then you might want to check out the Scion game or the Trinity game. Trinity Continuum, I think is what it's called. And again, use our affiliate link. It'll take you to They Come, but it'll take you over to the Onyx Path stuff, or Onyx Publishing or Onyx Press. But they came from the Cyclops Cave, or they came from the summer camp lake. Is designed to be tropey and stupid and kind of lean into that. And you can see here, Blast from Greatness, a Convenient Storm, I'm okay. I'm not done yet. It was all a dream. Pause to monologue. Spread your wings, right? You'll never get away with this. So it's all just, tropey stuff from these genres and from these games and from these movies. All right. Well, then we also have, by the way, the Fiendish Plot deck. This is basically a mechanized version, right, of the Wheel of Pain, as far as I can determine. So we can randomly draw a fiendish plot in secret or in front of the players if we want them to have it. And this can be what the creature or whatever it is wants to think. So for example, Vorshak or Vorjak, the infected dragon, wants to kidnap Professor Isadora, the Sphinx. All right. With mischievous sprites to gain vengeance over a past wrong, and also random curse. We have a dragon ally. I don't know where that comes from, but there we go. We also have information about fantastic settings. Oop, I skipped to the end of the game. Where were we? We also have information about fantastic settings, such as the fantastic setting deck. For example, we get a 17, so we are fighting in the 20 Rivers Empire, or perhaps a prehistoric plains. We could have different moods and different locations and different events. And here's another little short story. The Chronicles of the Howling Abyss. And then we have a bestiary, which we're not going to get into, but here's a banshee. So it's got some information, more narrative than anything, some goals, what are some story hooks, and then some system information. What skills do they have? What attributes do they have? How many health points do they have? And then some special rules, which looks to take up about half a column of text here. They have the undead threat. Even though they do not appear threatening, they are scale 2, representing their undead nature. They have their Banshee's Scream, which can make people damage and take the stun condition. And they need a manicure. They have long, cracked fingernails and slash with terrible abandon. They have the piercing tag, and if you're struck, they fail a medicine stamina roll. They have the diseased condition. We also have centaurs, chimeras, Circe, the sorcerer queen, the Colchis bulls. There's the Cyclops, the titular Cyclops. It is a scale 3 antagonist with 15 health. It has a deafening roar, a godborn, and if we blind it, it reduces it to half its hit points immediately. But if we kill it, we become cursed. They are riddled, and they have an amazing sense of accuracy with hurled rocks. And they add 4 dots to their aim whenever they throw rocks. But conversely, they have no sense of aim when using bows or slings. And some story hooks might be like, large flocks of sheep are going missing due to a violent Cyclops attack. The town is steadily running out of sheep to feed and dress its people, while the townsfolk are increasingly worried about the attacks growing closer and closer. Is it possible to negotiate with the Cyclops and set a boundary requiring its territory, or does the monster need to be hunted? Cool stuff there. Fairies, dragons, giants, goblins, hydras, merfolk, the Minotaur, the one-eyed necromancer, orcs with an X, the questing beast, rocks, oozes, serpent people, sphinxes, stop-motion skeletons, specifically stop-motion skeletons. I love that, by the way. That's nice. Trolls, unicorns. Here's some nameless knaves. These are more of our mook rolls. They use a squad rule. So you can stack them up into one stack, and basically damage done to them can be basically kill multiple ones in one go. Everything from angry peasants to brutal bandits to ferocious beasts to ruthless assassins. And then we have information about running the game. Referring to Campbell's heroic journey, the road, the ordinary world, the refusing the call, the tests, the innermost cave, the ordeal, the road back, the resurrection. So very much tying into those tropes, both film and classic mythology. Information about how to use different locations and classic tropes that you might incorporate into your game, which I appreciate. And then lastly, we have a starting adventure. And then numerous appendices and indices. So that was a quick first look at They Came from the Cyclops' Cave. My thoughts. So it seems simple enough. You're going to be only using D10s. You're going to roll 8s and 9s or 1, 10s or double. There's an interesting little kind of, choice after the randomness, because if you succeed, you can choose, do you want to buy stunts? Do you want to pay off the complications? Do you want to not pay off the complications so you can gain the stunt? You're obviously going to be looking for moments to bring up your trademarks and your tropes and your quips to really go over the top. The game is very heavy-handed in the narrativism, very heavy-handed in the emulationism. I see almost nothing here is simulationist. Almost nothing here really strikes me as being particularly gamist. This is an extremely narrativist-heavy game. I think Damien described it earlier as crunchier fate, and I'm tending to agree with that. Now, that's interesting because in a narrative game, I don't know how much I care about the crunch. I certainly could not see playing this game straight ledge. I know they talk about, like in the beginning of the game, they said, well, you can pick and choose whatever things you want to make the kind of game you want. But when you're talking about random quips from the quip deck, which that you can bust out at the appropriate moment and have everybody cheer and then get a bunch of dice and, whatever, that's not a game that I'm planning on taking seriously anytime soon. But yeah, I will say I don't really see myself playing this game in any capacity except as a one-shot, and I don't even particularly like one-shots. But I think that this could be an interesting game to play as a one-shot at a con with pre-gen characters that are very tropey that everyone knows. You literally are handing out Conan the Barbarian and Sinbad and Jason the Argonauts, and the theme of the game is that some crazy director wants to do a remake of all the classics, 60s, 70s, 80s era sword and sorcery characters, and the name of the movie is going to be called Sword, the Sword and Sorcery Cinematic Universe, the SSCU, and you're putting together these characters, and that way everyone knows the tropes, everyone knows what's going into it. You've got your deck of quip cards, everyone's drawing them, and you're like, oh god, how am I going to use this? And then something happens, and then someone goes, wait. You will not get away with this, evildoer! And they show the card, and everyone goes, and you roll a bunch of dice. Would that lead to a fun moment? Yeah, absolutely. I could totally see this going over extremely well. Now, this is a thick, long book for something that, in my opinion, is not designed for long-term play. You could do more than a one-shot for this, absolutely. I'm not even kidding you, though. I would get sick of this after 3 sessions. There's no way I could play this for more than 3 sessions. This is sugary. This is saccharin. This is a lot even for me. And in a game like this, I don't feel like I would ever make use of or pay attention to any of those stunt rules, because it's a tropey game, and the last thing I want in a game like this is someone rolling and then looking down at their list of stunts that they can use. That to me seems really counter-purposed, So that's probably the one thing I don't like about the game. I don't like the, here's a list of stunts, and you rolled, you needed to roll 2 successes, you rolled 3 or 4, and you're like, cool, I spend 2 to buy off the difficulty. Now I've got 2 stunts left. All right, what do I want to do? Well, I could do this and this, or I could do this one, or I could do this one and this one. And I know what you're saying, oh, people just quickly pick one and go for it. You say that, but in my experience, that's just not how it works. I like the idea. Just like in Legend of the Five Rings, I like the idea of the opportunity spent. in theory. But in principle, at the table, it doesn't work well. Where it works well, I think, is if you've been playing the game for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 sessions, and you know that table really well, and you're very quick on your feet, and you know what options are available to you, and you can very quickly say, I'm going to use this trope, or I'm going to use this stunt. But when you're playing that for the first time, or as a one shot, or as even just like a 2 or 3 shot, you're not going to learn that. And that means you're going to be looking down a lot. Now, the game says, oh, you should write down the stunts that you use most common on your sheet, but the fact of the matter is all of those ones are available to you. And that means that even if it's not written down on your sheet, you might go, wait a second, maybe there's one not on my sheet that could help us in this particular situation. And there's naturally going to be a desire for people to want to look at their choices. And I don't blame them, because you want to know what you can do. So I think that's probably the one main concern. Now, in terms of the Jared Sorensen thing, I got to give this game high marks. This game comes out with both fucking barrels and says, this is what this game is about. From the art, the presentation, the title. This game is about using this Storypath system, which is essentially a D10 dice pool system, circa World of Darkness, 1992 or whatever. And saying, this is what this game's about. Here are the mechanics, which lean super heavy into that ideas. And then the rewarding system, the XP system, is tied around using your quips, achieving your player-chosen achievements, which basically you saying to the director, these are the character beat moments. These are the character arc moments, story moments that I want to experience, that I want to have. It's almost like a wish list of character moments, and then playing to those, achieving them, and getting XP for that. So from like an integration standpoint, the game gets S tier for me. The only thing that feels out of place to me, honestly, like I said, is the complicated, I use the term complicated, combat rules with, splitting your successes and initiative and rolling defense pools and using all these different conditions and, afraid, prone, stunned, whatever, having some sense of initiative order or the range. And that's where it feels very like, what are we even doing here? But maybe that's what people are signing up for. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, again, this is in the game that lets you spend 4 rewrites so that your character grows to the size of the giant that you're facing, so that like literally, like Rita is on the moon and she's like, let my PC grow. And she like throws her spear down. It lands next to your PC. They grow in size. They don't like hop in a Megazord or something. They just get big enough to now go mano a mano with the dragon in hand-to-hand combat. Never mind that if you spent just one more rewrite, you would also mega fusion with another PC, and you would become some big, huge, double-headed, monstrosity to go fight this thing. And it literally could come out of nowhere like this. So, having this kind of like, but make sure you can track whether they're prone seems a little bit counterpurpose to me. But I think I like the system. The creating the pool seems very straightforward, which I like that. Yeah. I like the concept of the choice. Choosing to buy off the complications feels a little bit like Shadows and Sparks from Trespasser, which obviously I really liked. I do like Fate, but I do feel like Fate sometimes is a little not crunchy enough. This probably feels a little too crunchy. Damien wants me to take a look at couple more of the cinematics. All right, we'll take a couple because we looked at. All right, here we go. Blast from Greatness, 5 rewrites. So this takes 5 rewrites out of your pool. Scholars have hotly debated whether the spell's name means that it blasts the greatness out of its targets or it uses greatness to assail them. Either way, it is a potent magical effect feared by those who know of its existence. Unlike other cinematics, this can only be used once per session. Because of its awesome power, you or your story guide should take time to describe exactly how the magical energy. Now, are you a director or are you a story guide? Anyways, you have to build up your magical energy. This cinematic creates a massive bolt of divine power that smites one target of your choice, reducing their scale by 2 for the remainder of the scene and filling in half of their injury boxes. Heroes willing to risk it all may roll a difficulty 3, aim plus cunning, or mysticism plus intellect, striking one additional foe for each excess success. On a botch, the only two struck are the original target and the hero using this cinematic. So this is basically your kind of Kamehameha wave. What else do we got here? A convenient storm. 3 to 5 rewrites. Some scenes run long, and only the special effects technician knows how to end it. Other scenes just aren't going the hero's way, and it's up to Mother Nature to get them out of this mess. Regardless, this cinematic turns the tide in the hero's favor. The current scene immediately ends, and a sudden storm savages the area. By sheer luck, the heroes manage to find shelter to weather the violence. Additionally, the storm might pick the adventurers up, depositing them somewhere else, or destroy part of their surroundings, revealing a hidden passageway to an underground chamber. Either way, any imminent danger disappears, and the heroes find themselves someplace new. New does not necessarily mean safe. Although this usually takes the form of a storm, any vaguely natural phenomenon can be substituted if appropriate. For example, an earthquake may make more sense. If used as a magical effect, this costs 5 rewrites instead of 3 rewrites, and the storm rages in several oddly specific ways. Choose up to 2 of the following options. The violent weather traps all foes in the current scene for the duration of the next scene. You choose where the storm transports you and your allies. The location doesn't need to make sense. Not needs to make sense. It doesn't need to make sense. We're talking about right? We're sailing on the ocean and we're trying to reach some mystical desert island. And we're trying to reach some mystical desert, and we're in trouble because undead pirates are attacking us. And then we trigger this as a magical effect. And just then, a terrible gale blows in, 50-foot waves, and a swirling vortex appears. And and we're sucked out. And we get sucked down the magical vortex, and our ship appears, landing in the middle of the desert. I mean, that's kind of awesome. This is the kind of game, and I'm not even kidding, and I don't mean to throw shade on my buddy Bob, but I will. This is the kind of game I would hate to play with Bob, and this is the kind of game I would love to play with Smith. See, Boothby says, I might have tried this game if it didn't get a first look. See, Boothby, it's doing you value. But that's pretty crazy. I mean, that's literally plot armor. We got divine intervention, get in the sack, 5 minutes of preparation, 3 rewrites. Even Conan needs a few minutes to get ready for an important fight. Most of the time, the audiences get to see a last montage of the preparation. Heroes preparing traps, fletching arrows, or helping villagers drill in specific spear handling. Few can argue with the results. When you use this cinematic, briefly explain how you have prepared the current area specifically for this scene, even if your explanation conflicts with previously established facts. Until the end of the scene, each hero can automatically succeed on 1 roll, with all successes actually rolled considered valid for buying off stunt. These rolls ignore the scale, allowing adventurers to claim small victories even against the gods. So yeah, I mean, these are pretty crazy, powerful, literal plot editing, over the top things. So this is way, way, way out of pocket. But the game came out of this, it wasn't trying to be like, this is an important fantasy game that you can use for anything from mystery horror to Cthulhu. It's not trying to be like D&D. It's just trying to say like, yep, this is a tropey game full of silly zombie things. There's a whole section there about humor in your game. And while they try to make it sound like, yeah, you could play it without it, the fact of the matter is most of these mechanics are going to lead into, goofy and silly, over the top, very Deus Ex Machina thing. But if you've watched, those movies, Clash of the Titans and it's full of Deus Ex Machina. It's full of that stuff. It's full of literally the gods deciding to send Perseus while he's asleep, magical arms and armor, right? Like, it's literally full of that stuff. And this game doesn't shy away from that. But I think the core system of just assemble a D10 pool, roll it, How do you feel that this compares to 2D20 in terms of the crunch? Similar, actually. I would agree with that, Sebastian. I think 2D20 is still probably a little bit crunchier. I feel like the mechanics are a little bit more nuanced, right? With, you know, I don't, you know, I haven't played all the 2D20 games, right? But determining whether or not like you get like a special success and the double success, and like whether you're using one of your critical skills and it succeeds at more than just a, you know, below your value and all that other stuff. Like, you know, there's a little bit more, I think, crunch to the 2D20 system in terms of its like meta mechanics, but yeah, it's probably similar. I love Dune and I love Star Trek, but I don't know that and I've bought like all of the 2D20 games, but I don't know that I love 2D20. There's something about it that just doesn't. I don't know. Maybe it's just something it just doesn't do it for me. I'm not sure what it is yet. I haven't played enough to really grok it. But there's something there. I'm not sure what it is. I think what it is like crunchy narrative games, you know. No, not Star Trek. No, Star Trek Adventures is this whole other thing if we're counting like all the different computer rules and Star Trek and Starship rules and all this other stuff. No, I don't hate this game in any stretch of the imagination. I think I would happily play this game as a con game, or as some sort of you know, one shot and have fun with it. And I think Damien does a great job of describing it there. This is success plus shenanigans. The default is, it does say that the default assumption is 1. And I mean, if you've got 3 dots plus 4 dots, you know, you're rolling 7 dice, you know, you're rolling 6 dice. You only need to get 1 of those dice to be an 8, 9, or 10 to succeed. You know, success seems like it's going to be fairly common. Assuming you need 1. So, which I like. I mean, again, this is about, you know, kind of rolling forward. The GM puts those complications in there and you can buy those off. And it does seem to really reinforce that. I don't know how much I love that, but as someone who grew up and you know, it's interesting because you might say, well, Derek, you loved all those films that were listed as the inspiration. It's true. I do. But I don't necessarily know that I want to play those games as RPGs, right? Oh, awesome. Okay. Good to know. Damien says there's a streamlined set of rules in the anthology that does what you want, Derek. Very streamlined for one-shots. That would probably be way more up my sleeve. And that does sound pretty cool. I mean, it's simple. It's intuitive. Add this. That's how many dice you roll. Roll them. Look for 8s, 9s, and 10s. I don't know if 8, 9, and 10 particularly stands out as being immediately intuitive. 10s kind of too. I think that sounds, you know, that all sounds good to me. If you didn't get any successes, but you did roll 1s, botch. Like the core mechanic is very, you know, natural, intuitive. There's a reason it's kind of mostly survived for the last 30 years. Yeah. Interesting, to say the least. But hey, we did great tonight. We had amazing tips from Thaddeus, Ben, and Torn, each who threw in $50. So we are definitely going to be doing another first look. Sounds like we might be doing Mythic Bastion Land, Ultra Violet Grasslands, maybe both. I'm unemployed. I have time for this. And with a $100 tip goal, we're going to fit in a bonus stream this week. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe Friday, like during the day. Who knows? It could be anything. Wow, it could be a boat. You know, I'm gonna try to do my best to make this fun and exciting for you all. Provide additional content and maybe do some things that we haven't done before. We've talked about doing, but we've never really been able to do it because I haven't been able to give my full time and devotion to this channel. I don't know what that means necessarily, but I'm looking forward to it. And through the continued help of people like Ben, Torn, and Thaddeus, along with my incredible patrons, my incredible subscribers, and folks like you, hopefully this isn't too terrible for me. You know, I understand we're all going to be facing some tough times ahead. So I really appreciate that you come here, hang out with me for a few hours, a couple times a week. We talk about games. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, what we're excited about, what we're not excited about, what games we might want to play, what games we might want to play, and ways that we can make our current games better. Games are important and, quite frankly, very affordable. I mean, I have enough behind me to last me several lifetimes without ever buying another thing. Things are going to get expensive, and I promise you probably have games that you could already play for the next couple of years if times get tough and money gets short. There's always that. So definitely enjoy that. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out with me tonight. I think Storypath and They Came seemed pretty interesting, very tropey, very leaning into that, and that's what the game is about, and I respect the hell out of it for that. There's some other ones, like this was obviously right Harryhausen, type fantasy sword and sandal adventure, but there's ones for sci-fi, there's ones for slasher film horror, so it all really depends on what kind of trope you're looking into lean to, but it is all powered by this Storypath system. And if you want something that's a little less over the top and gonzo and crazy, they do have other games. Scion is where you it's kind of like Exalted, basically, if I understand it correctly. It's much more serious minded. The whole They Come From blah 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 is kind of like their campy genre series. Damien says it's 50s sci-fi specifically, right? So very atomic energy and radar will beat it, right? Very much in that style and which is great. Pathfinder says, always enjoy these good first. Thank you for the endeavors. Have a great night. Derek, hit me up. If you need to chat about stuff. Yeah, Pathfinder PhD, thank you. I mean, my community's been great, and I've really appreciated having them all available to me. And, I really appreciate everyone being so kind and understanding. It's been a really tough year for me. A lot of loss and, going back to losing the studio, losing the fire, surgeries, out-of-pocket expenses, unexpected problems with the home, the loss of my father, the loss of my job. It's been crazy, but this channel and games in general have been a great solace for me, and I really appreciate that. So I appreciate all of you for being along with me on this journey. So thank you again to everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you again for my patrons for supporting me, and thanks again to Thaddeus, Ben, and Torn for the tip goals tonight. I was thinking that might be this week's tip goals, and you guys kind of came out and took care of business right away. So I appreciate that a lot. It means a lot more to me. So it really means a lot more to me now than it used to, because in the back of the day, this was for fun, and whatever money I did make from the channel was kind of like, oh, put it into my fun fund, or buy some more RPGs, or maybe plan an extra trip to Vegas this year. But now this money is going to paying mortgages and gas and food. So it becomes, it means so much more when you guys contribute. So I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you for doing that. And of course, if you can't financially contribute, if you don't want to join the Patreon, and by the way, you should, because it just gives you incredible access to an incredible community of gamers. Link in the description below. You can join at $5 or $10 a month. We're about to kick off Northern Reaches Season 3. Announcements coming out this week. And if you want to play a lot of Pathfinder 2, that's going to be the place to do that. But also, use my links. Use the affiliate links. Use our Amazon affiliate link. Use our Drive-Thru RPG link. Yeah, that way it doesn't cost you any extra money, but I might get a couple extra bucks on credit that I can use to buy the next PDF for the next first look, et cetera, et cetera. So if you do want to help us, support us. Otherwise, subscribe, ring the bell, get notified so that you can join us the next time we talk about games here on the Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody. Thank you.